Sword of Coming Chapter 1047. The capital of the small Yunyan kingdom is now full of strange people and people. In addition, the dignitaries and generals and ministers from various countries who came here to join in the grand event filled the streets for a while. As long as people from outside the country, they all have identities, and they probably won't be easy to provoke when they meet each other. So it's so peaceful. I just say that those cheap practitioners who call for wind and rain seem to have a tacit understanding. They are extremely well behaved in their words and deeds, and they are at peace with the people at the foot of the mountain. So far, the Yunnan State Department of Criminal Justice has not received any disputes. To deal with them, officials from the Ministry of Rights and Honglu Temple began to change their ways in the courtroom to ask His Majesty for credit. A fly restaurant in a shabby alley, grilled fish is the signature dish, and several tables are full. The diners in the restaurant are loud, and they are mostly talking about big deals that cost thousands of taels and tens of thousands of taels. At the table with the lowest voice, I ordered a grilled fish and a few kilograms of barley, a specialty of the capital. Previously, a guy who seemed to be paying for a treat made a special trip to follow the guy to the backyard of the restaurant to pick out fish. The fatter and thin ones were picked. In the end, he said that it was for 4 people, and the herring that was picked up should not be too heavy. Not lavish. At first glance it seems that there is not much money in the pocket, and it is rare to go out to restaurants to improve the food. This person stepped on the bench with one leg, the whole person shrank, took a sip of wine from the bowl, and whispered, "I heard that the old ancestor personally led Wushou to Qingping sword sect." Opposite the table is a pair of Chinese, the man and woman, who looked like a married couple. The woman frowned slightly, and was pushing away the coriander used for decoration. She heard the words with a smile. The ancestor is obviously helping this fat man to make up for the past, but according to the temper of fellow Daoist Lingjiao, when he arrives there, may not be pleasing, and most of them will not be satisfied. It's hard to say for other sects and immortals. I must know what the style of Lord Yingguan's sect will be. The man put the coriander into his bowl and whispered, "Let's not put salt on Fatty Wu's wound." Then the man added, "This meal has to wait for him to pay for it." In order not to pay the bill, this fellow pretends to be drunk, or escapes to the toilet. That's a must. He and the woman are indeed a pair of mountains. The couples, named Tao Hongxing and Luo Jin respectively, were born in Baozhai and are now in charge of Tonggishao affairs. As for the young cultivator on the opposite side, it is the accountant of Tonggishao Baozhai who is in charge of accounting books and accounting details. His name is Guomanqian. Make money together and supervise each other. Zhang Ji, the founder of Haoran World's Burden Jai, told Chen Pingan at Qingshandu that the 3 of them had too much admiration for Lord Yingguan and did not dare to take them with him. At that time, Chen Pingan listened to it as a polite remark in the business field, but there was no moisture in it. Before coming to Tonggishao, Tao Hongxing had a good relationship with most of the ship owners and stewards who went to Dangshuanshan to buy and sell cross-continental ferries, and Guomanqian herself was a top tyrant from a certain Middle-earth Shenzhou. A noble family, his family has a cross-continental ferry, and it hangs in his name. Therefore, Guomanqian is actually very clear about the discussion about the closing of the Sword Immortal in Chunfan Zhai that year, from the process to the result. Guomanqian smiled. Yena was bad, deliberately put a chopstick in fish meat for the woman, but Tao Hongxing hurriedly knocked it off with a chopstick and stared. "She is your sister-in-law, be honest with me." Guomanqian retracted the chopsticks and put them in her mouth after chewing. He asked, "Master Patriarch is really so optimistic about the financial resources after Dadu has been dug through? If it were me, even if I could spend money at will, I'm afraid I would not have the courage to do so." 6,000 grain rain money. Previously in Qingping sword sect, the Patriarch promised to give out 6,000 pieces of Guyu money, but half of it was Zhang Ji's private money. In name, it is Qingping sword sect, Jade Guizhong, the Quan dynasty, and other forces. As co-sponsors, in fact, people with discernment know that it is the young hidden officer who used the name of Qingping Sword sect to take the lead, and then save the game. Tong Yezhou excavated Dadu, and the first immortal money was an astronomical amount. The Qingping Sword sect gave 3,000 pieces of Guyu money. Yugizong's treasury took out 5,000. De Quan Yao, 2,000, is said to have borrowed money from Qingping Jianzong and Yuguizong respectively, without interest. There are 10,000 and 2,000 pieces in the Aizhou Lu family and the Xuanmi dynasty Yu family respectively. All have been credited. Plus the 6,000 of Bao's. In addition, it seems that Piyun Mountain in Aquarius Island, Weibo, the king of Beiyue Mountain who likes to hold night banquets, also took out 2,000 grain rain money not long ago. In the world, as long as there is money to open the way, it is not difficult. Tao Hongxing was in awe. Great, worthy of being Lu Kaixin, he is extraordinary. It turned out that in addition to paying the money, Lu clan of Aizhou also promised to transfer fairies from several continents within a year, and will deliver 300 mountain fairies and talismans of various sizes to Tongyi's Hao. Guo Manqian said sourly, since Lu Kaixin is so capable, he can even send it over with the immortal master who sailed the boat, and the immortal money consumed by the spiritual energy will be waived. The Guo family in Junxian County, Zhongtu, and the Lu family in Aizu had a festival in the business field. However, each showed his supernatural powers. Guo's skills were inferior to others, and the general result was that the latter lost the financial resources of a big dynasty and several medium-sized countries. On paper, Lu and Yu paid the most money, and it is said that there was no written evidence, only a verbal agreement between the two parties, which is a veritable agreement between gentlemen. Furthermore, according to the agreement, the Lu Yu family will only earn 10% of the principal, and one day they will recover the cost and get the predetermined dividend, a Tong Yezhou Dadu, no matter what kind of income will be accumulated in the future. Or it is on account the envy of the money and the huge profits have nothing to do with them anyway. Luo Jin smiled and said, doesn't this mean that Qin Yingguan's favor alone is worth 11,000 grain rain coins on Lu Jibeo's side? Tao Hongxing nodded and said, it's worth the price. Luo Jin was a little strange. It's been more than a month, and since the ferry from Qingping Jianzong docked at Yulindu, Mi Yu has been staying by the ferry. Never got off the boat. It seems that this great sword immortal deliberately gave up the chance to show his face to the accountant Chong Qiu and Jing Xingfing Chao Qingqing. Guo Manqian smiled playfully and glanced at Tao Hongxing. Mi Yu of the Great Wall of Sword Qi has a skinny appearance and a sword fairy demeanor. That's really good. Brother Tao, you have to take it easy. I heard that Mi Jianxian, the ability to mess with flowers, is no worse than swordsmanship. The man grinned, his face full of indifference. It's human nature for a man to look at a woman's figure and be pretty. It doesn't matter if you can't control your heart, just control your sister-in-law's body. Even when you fight on the bed, your sister-in-law is full of thoughts about rice. You, also nothing. The woman raised her eyebrows with affection, stretched out 2 fingers, and twisted her man's arm vigorously. Damn. Guo Manqian's face was full of horror. She gasped for air, and hurriedly stood up and bent over, filled Tao Hongxing with a big bowl of wine, and then said with a flattering smile, sister-in-law, do you think I look good? The woman squinted at the young man. You are thin, get out and cool off. Guo Manqian picked up the wine bowl and took a sip. I made an appointment. Let me play as the suzerain in the future, and then go out. I will have an identity that can be displayed. Otherwise, every time I go home to participate in the ancestral hall discussion, I will carry it. No head. Once you are in the top 5 realms, you can try to report to the Confucian temple and start a sect. There is also a process similar to the selection of officials in the Yamashita court. Only the upper 5 realms can open a sect and establish a sect. This is a necessary condition, but it does not mean that as long as you are in the Jade Pure realm, you will definitely be able to create a sect. There will be a review process at the Zhongtu Confucian Temple. It is not that Baozhai has not thought about establishing the next sect, but the problem is that it seems that even Baozhai is not yet a sect. When Tao Hongxing heard the sect, he let out a long sigh. Every family has a scripture that is difficult to read, regardless of how much money Baozhai makes, but if we really want to talk about the status on the mountain, let alone Baozhai, it is the reputation of the entire merchant in the world, so what? At that time, the merchants were almost eliminated by the Confucian Temple from among the 100 schools of thought. Can money go to the gods? There is fart use in the Confucian Temple. Guo Manqian gloated and said, instead of me going to Qingping Sword Sect, I don't need to be accompanied by the old patriarch. Xiandu Mountain can always be walked up, and it won't stop at the ferry. Luo Jin reminded, hurry up and shut up, Fatty Wu is here. Among the three, women are actually the highest realm. A fat man with a bag on his side entered the restaurant and sat beside Guo Manqian, complaining, why did you find such a place? Teach me how to find it, and replace it with a restaurant instead of a more spacious one. While drinking happily, while admiring the night view of the capital is beautiful. Guo Manqian asked the restaurant guy for more bowls and chopsticks, and said with a smile, I hate that the place is small, so let's have a second meal. Wu Shou sat aside, the bench creaked suddenly, forget it, I have an appointment with 2 groups of people, let's make an appointment later. Invite outsiders to drink, negotiate business, and all expenses can be reimbursed by Mr. Guo Manqian, the accountant, but if you invite Guo Manqian a few drinks, Wu Shou will have to pay for it out of his own pocket. Tong Yezhou Baozhai sighed, like Lu Jubao and Yu Panshui, loses money, and earns money, and also only receives 10% of the principal as dividends. A total of 6,000 pieces of rain money had already been received in the temporary establishment of the Patriarch's Hall. In the future, this 100% income, that is, 600 pieces of rain money, would naturally fall into Zhang Ji's pocket. And Tongyi's Hao Baozhai sighed, of course, is not busy, even if you don't mention the income on the book, just say that in the future, along this Dadu, many ferry crossings, regardless of the old and new, will build Baozhai shops, according to the ancestor Zhang straightforwardly instructed, to discuss this matter with the imperial courts of various countries and the local Xianfu sects, they must only sell rather than rent, and negotiate a one-shot deal. So during this period of time, Tao Hongxing and Wu Shou, who were working separately, were talking about this matter. There were several wine parties almost every day, from morning to night, in a row. Although the price given by Baozhai is not high, the signing is also a long-term contract starting from 3 to 500 years. It is agreed that unless the dynasty is changed, it will be discussed separately. However, the imperial courts and sects on the mountain in various countries can create an extra sum of immortal money out of thin air, and they can also give money to themselves. Jayatiku helped to gather popularity. For all the forces that were so poor that they were about to fasten their belts to live, Baozhai's willingness to settle down and take root in the local area was a good thing to give charcoal in the snow, so why not do it? Baozhai is obviously a land grab. But just like Zhang Ji's previous explanation, the popularity of any Xianjia ferry, whether or not there is a baggage house, is completely different. Can be with the landlord, mutual benefit. In addition, having received this immortal money like a timely rain, the person in charge of the treasury who manages the money on the mountain, and the yamen of the households in various countries, with money in his pocket, his waist will be straight, and his words will be hard. Luo Jin sighed softly, let's not talk about the good reputation of Qinqiu, but only say that in the next 10 years, the entire central Tongya continent will encounter a fierce year and a barren year, and it will not be a problem for the people. I'm starving all over the place. Guo Manqian nodded. This is similar to that of a Confucian sage who is famous for his poetry in the world, who succeeded in disaster relief by relying on large-scale construction projects. Tao Hongxing asked, I heard that those wild people in the mountains who don't care about world affairs are finally willing to go out. Regarding the Luoyang Muk lineage, this is a tacitly taboo topic for many monks in Baozhai. Because the founder of Baozhai Zhai, the owner Zhang Ji, was born in the Luoyang Muk line, and belonged to the kind of traitor who deceived his teachers and destroyed his ancestors. Wu Shou said cautiously, it's hard to have a late-night snack, so I won't talk about these unpleasant things, right? Guo Manqian took off her boots, sat cross-legged, and looked down at the table. Fortunately, there was no such dark scene. An embroidered shoe at the bottom of the table suddenly turned up, and he was about to kick his face. Luo Jin smiled and scolded, what do you want to see? Guo Manqian smiled and said, I'm not worried about the firewood and fire between my sister-in-law and brother Tao regardless of the occasion. It will not affect the news. Wu Shou was not surprised by this. He laughed, put a large piece of fish in his mouth, sipped. He took a big mouthful of barley wine with a slightly dull taste. I don't know which guy who was full and supported, deliberately declared that Yao Jinji, the Empress of Dequan, Huang Yin of Pushan, Yu Aifu, and Aizhou the great female master, Lu Suiyu, gathered here, and more than a dozen fairies with far-flung names also came to the capital of Yunyan Kingdom, which made a large influx in just 2 months. The monks who helped Wawa Chongxi and the literati of several countries around Yunyan Kingdom. Although Wu Shou has returned from Qingping Sword Sect, on Guo Manqian's side, he has been deliberately acting quite complacent. In fact, at the ferry crossing outside the mountain, the young hidden official was indeed kind, and the tea from King Shandu was also delicious. But for some reason, Wu Shou now has a mantra, give me a break. Guo Manqian sincerely admires the poor Chen Shanju, who started from scratch. In the age of no confusion, he has already accumulated a huge family business, and he went up the mountain and became a sect. Tao Hongxing admires what the young hermit has done on the Great Wall of Sword Qi, but the woman admires Chen Ping's inner fear the most. Nowadays, some gossip spreads around people with noses and eyes, and often early in the morning, you can see the second shopkeeper sitting alone at the gate of Ning Mansion. In the alley outside the restaurant, a white-clothed boy with a mole on his eyebrows came. He threw his sleeves at the door and walked straight past. He suddenly leaned back, stared into the house with wide eyes, turned and strode over the threshold, and said with a hippie smile. People in this world, there are always a few meddling and useless efforts, such as treating dead horses, helping mud, carving rotten wood, persuading prostitutes to be good, asking Tuzi to put down their knives, and letting merchants make money. Don't be rude. The young man entered the restaurant, slapped the fat man on the shoulder, and said in shock, fellow Daoist Lingjiao, do you have a wide heart and a fat body, and you are still in the mood to hide here and drink? The bloated but called Wu Shou's fellow Daoist spirit corner, with a stiff body and a tense heart, turned his head with a bitter face, and said with a dry smile, Sect Master Cui, which gust of wind brought your old man here? Cui Dongshan smiled and said, did you leave King Shandu, eat and drink well every day, and finally recover? Wu Shou smiled awkwardly and said, Sect Master Cui is joking. Cui Dongshan grabbed Fatty's shoulders hard, are you kidding me? Daoist Lingjiao is insinuating that I am frivolous. Wu Shou hurriedly apologized, I dare not dare, misunderstanding and misunderstanding. Cui Dongshan moved, then reached out and pushed Wu Shou and Guo Manqian away, sitting abruptly in the middle of the bench. Guo Manqian frowned slightly and said nothing. About this boy in white who jumped out from that corner, the sect master of Luopa Mountain, the direct disciple of Master Qin Shan. Even if the information is well informed, I still can't find any clues. Ji also specially reminded a few of them not to try to find clues about Cui Dongshan's cultivation routes, and to keep a distance from this person. Therefore, Cui Dongshan took the initiative to come to the door today. Except for Wu Shou, who had suffered a lot, he secretly complained in his heart, and Tao Hongxing was very surprised. Do you recognize it? The boy in white raised his sleeves, took out 3 immortal coins, and placed them on the table. It is the 3 kinds of mountain money, snow money, small summer money, and grain rain money. Cui Dongshan stretched out his palm, pressed a finger against a piece of fairy money, and said with a smile, I don't think you recognize them, what do you think? Tao Hongxing said with a smile, Sect Master Cui thinks so, that's so good. Since some people will meet at first sight, they are very eye-catching. Of course, there are also some people who don't want to see the second side when they see it, such as the mysterious Cui sect master in front of him. It's just a pity that Qin Shanju, how did he find such a direct disciple of the current sect master? It would be good to replace it with Pei Qian, the eldest disciple with a good reputation, and yes, she is a pure martial artist and cannot establish a sect on the mountain. Cui Dongshan bent 3 fingers, tapped the immortal money on the table lightly, and said with a smile, My husband has always believed that being reasonable and not giving examples is equivalent to playing a hooligan. Then I will give an example. For example, if you know Mr. Fan, if you don't know a few of you, then you and Mr. Fan don't count as acquaintances, right? The same is true. Gua Manqian sneered and said, Why, these 3 immortal coins recognize Sect Master Cui. With a flick of his sleeve, Cui Dongshan put the immortal money back into his sleeve. Forget it, I really can't teach you guys. If Shang Ji was present, he would probably understand. Including the man with the road named Turpentine, a total of 7 Luoyang wooden travelers began to travel down the mountain, choosing sites on various continents and choosing where to stay. It is said that Mr. Fan, the businessman, climbed the mountain personally and persuaded the group of Luoyang wooden guests to break the ancestral motto and go out of the mountain. In fact, either Baozhai or Luoyang wooden guest. In Cui Dongshan's eyes, it's just a wedding dress for others. This other is 2 people. One is the grandfather of the merchant, Mr. Fan. The second is Lu Jubao, the god of wealth who trades in the world of Aizhou. During the last discussion in the Confucian temple, Li Xing finally opened his mouth, which was equivalent to opening a layer of prohibition. From now on, the ancestors and masters of the various schools and hundreds of schools will each cultivate their own way and climb to the top, and there will be no more bottlenecks. How high is the final height and how big the avenue is, it is up to each one's ability. Luo Jin smiled and said, If the Qingping Sword sect are all masters like Sect Master Cui, then my husband and I have been thinking about the unfortunate mountain that we have been thinking about all these years. Cui Dongshan was devastated. Well, he was caught by a mother-in-law and bullied me, the most respected mister, so he moved out of mister to scare people. Okay, I'm scared. After all, it is now half an ally. Then treat people with sincerity, talk to you a few, open the skylight and say a few words of truth that you can't buy with money. Some businesses are destined to not make a lot of money. For example, food. I know that you are all so rich, and Zhang Ji is still so good at being a man. Why can't you even get his own word? Don't you think it's strange? Descendants will suffer. I remember your second in command of Baozhai in your early years. He was too fierce to make money, his skills were too high, and he dared to earn any money. As a result, he was recorded in the Confucian temple. You may not have heard of his name. Poor Zhang Ji, no matter how to remedy the matter afterwards, no matter how he went to Gongdalin in person, or how to find a relationship with Menlichuo, it would not work. There are 3 principal and deputy Confucian temple leaders, none of whom have ever met. This kind of thing, family shame can't be publicized, Zhang Ji must be embarrassed to speak, so you don't know much about it, right? It's called being hard-hearted, and you can't make money. You're too hard-hearted, and you can't keep money. It's really hard for you businessmen, who handle money like water, come and go. Only the last trip to the Confucian temple, Zhangji finally did not go in vain. At the gate of Gonglan, from Jingsheng Shiping, I heard an exhortation, predecessors planted trees and later people enjoyed the shade. So for so many years, Baozhai has a few transactions, which have been losing money, and honestly made up for it from other sources of money. There are also a few businesses that are never touched. It's okay, it's not worth the hard work of your grandfather Zhang Jihan. The daughter-in-law who has been angry for many years is finally going to be a mother-in-law. It only takes 3,000 grain rain money to exchange for a good reputation. It's a good deal. Guo Manqian turned to his side and cupped his hands. Sect Master Cui is really not so well informed. Even the secrets of other hilltops and the inside story of the Confucian temple are familiar. Cui Dongshan said seriously, "What is this? Even the venerable old lady in your family, and the story of Wei Shi and Azu, how she sleepwalked in Yinghua Dongshan in her early years, and how could she not fight with Wei Shi who traveled far away from Yinshin? I know, and why I don't get to know each other in the end, and I regret not being able to form a Taoist partner, I know all. Are you scared? Just ask if you are afraid." Guo Manqian was stunned for a moment. Even his brother of the Guo clan in Junxian County had only vaguely heard some gossip, which was different from what the clan said. Inside the family, it was said that the self-numbered 7, the cultivator of the Master of the 12 Peaks, fell in love with his old lady at first sight. However, when the family was in turmoil, the old lady did not want to leave a mess and marry Biazhou, who was already in the Ascension realm at that time. Wei Shi, naturally it is even less likely that he will join the army. County Guo, which led to the failure of the marriage on the mountain. As for the Yinghua Cave, which has never been occupied by the owner, it is a very famous place on the mountain, because the speed of the river of time is different from the outside world, so the gestation and growth rate of Dibao is much faster than that of other winds. Water treasure. It's no wonder that a great cultivator commented on this place, just 1/3 of this acre, just put some fertilizer and water, and all that grows are gold and silver. I can't even sit on the chairs of the ancestral halls of the sects of the sect. What's the point of it? Right now, on my side, it's the time of hiring people, and there is a shortage of capable people. Yes, it's better to cooperate sincerely with me and overcome difficulties, not to deal with these vain heads. Anyway, just one sentence, the most real, brothers, and make a fortune together. Wu Shou looked at his nose and heart, and said nothing. Dare to love, this is Guo Jianglong encountering a local snake. Was it the advice of the young hidden official, or was it Cui Dongshan's own opinion? Tao Hongxing and Guo Manqian looked at each other with solemn expressions. Those who come are not good, and those who are not good will not come. Accidentally boarded a pirate ship, and the owner of the ship began to make an inch. The atmosphere became solemn in an instant, but Luo Jin broke the silence and asked first, "Is Sect Master Cui joking?" "Yes. Of course, otherwise I'm so blatantly digging my feet, like." Cui Dongshan nodded and said, "Brother, it's not because you don't eat with chopsticks or drink, you just want to have fun and ease the awkward atmosphere." Several Guo Manqian all have the same idea in their hearts, is this person sick? Wu Shou roughly guessed the thoughts of several colleagues, and then you all know that Sect Master Cui needs to find a doctor to see a doctor. Cui Dongshan didn't have the same knowledge as them and said, "I won't sit down and eat and drink, I just say that this plate of grilled fish for 4 people has more people with chopsticks out of thin air. You don't mind, anyway, I'm sorry. I'm here today to discuss a matter with you. Don't be nervous. You are a straightforward person, and am also a sincere person who has a point of view. I can negotiate and finalize it right away. Bypassing Zhangji, for example, in the future, the goods that my family will sell to the outside world will be built in Baozhai in various places along the way of Tonggishao and Dadu. If one family is considered a family, they have to set aside a few shelves to help sell things. How much does it make? The shop can't take a cut. It's a treasure of the town store that can make people unable to look away when they see it, and can't walk on two legs. The sharp goods that open the door can help you attract much popularity. Of course, you guys don't need to thank me, they are friends at first sight friends. Talking about money hurts feelings. If you have to give money, it's fine, it hurts my feelings, but I can accept it reluctantly. This is to blatantly charge protection fees with our Tong Yezhou. Furthermore, since Baozhai is open for business, it will be sent to you every day. It is estimated that you will always meet some cultivating embryos with good qualifications. I will trouble you all to say a few good things to my brother and recommend one or two. If any of them are young day only sword repair, that's even better. The third point is next, and there are a few small precautions. Forget it, it hurts to stand and talk, I'll sit down and talk, let's chat while drinking. Good sect Master Cui, what do you mean by discussing something? Cui Dongshan smiled and said, the neighborly harmony is better than anything else. Luo Jin said, there is no need to talk about the third thing, I can tell sect Master Cui straightforwardly now, there is no need to talk at all. Cui Dongshan said, when you are doing business, don't be impatient. You can ask for a price and pay back the money. It's fun to go back and forth. Tao Hongxing shook his head and said, no need. Guo Manqian sneered, it's a long experience today. It was rare for Wu Shou to be hard-hearted, sect Master Cui is not sincere enough, it is indeed difficult to continue the conversation, but the business is not good and righteous, everyone don't hurt the peace. Cui Dongshan asked, you really don't want to hear the third thing? Luo Jin said, just don't get hurt. This is the order of expelling guests, reminding Cui Dongshan to continue talking. Tong Yezhou Baozhai and Qingping Jianzong may be about to tear their faces. Cui Dongshan took care of Wu Shou and Guo Manqian from both sides, each took a chopstick, then leaned over and stretched out his arms, and brought a pot of barley wine from Lujin's hand from the opposite side of the table, and a wine bowl in front of Tao Hongxing. The boy in white filled a bowl of wine, put a pair of chopsticks on the white bowl, and said with a smile, we have fish to eat tonight, a good sign, there must be more than 1 year. A young man with a walking stick walked into the restaurant and said with a smile, sect Master Cui, why don't you talk about the third thing, they are not patient enough, but I'd like to hear it. The Lord has finally come. Cui Dongshan smiled and said, in the future, in the middle of Tongya continent, along the coast of Dadu, there will be dozens of Xianjia ferry crossings and dozens of bungalows. Have you eaten enough? Zhang Ji sat across the table and asked with a smile, how? Cui Dongshan said, why don't we let this Tongya continent and all the ferry ports of one continent have a baggage restaurant? Zhang Ji asked, what about the precautions? Cui Dongshan said, for example, if one continent has mountains and rivers, the capitals of various countries also have burdens. Zhang Ji asked again, is there any more? Cui Dongshan said, for example, let Fuyazu do the same. Zhang Ji was silent. Cui Dongshan said with a smile, afraid to last. If you can't eat it for the time being, you can leave it. It's better than a year from this year to next year. Zhang Ji smiled and said, is it accurate? Cui Dongshan asked, don't ask me who I am. Zhang Ji really asked, who are you? Cui Dongshan took out a fan, I am Cui Dongshan, the proud student of Mr. Zhang Ji smiled and said, Mr. Chen's vision for picking students and Cui Zong's vision for picking Mr. seems to be very good. Cui Dongshan looked suspicious, isn't it ironic? Zhang Ji smiled and said, sincerely. There is an extremely handsome young monk, wearing a green robe, walking alone in the brightly lit capital, with a splendid skin, which can be described as indistinguishable between males and females, anyway, he can be called beauty. Therefore, when this person is walking on the road, the men also look at it, and the women also look at it. It was the Ascension cultivator of the Yaolu in Tonggishao town, Qing Tong, who had nothing to do anyway, so he came here to join in the fun. Along the way, before taking a few steps, far and near, Qing Tong discovered several Qi practitioners with deep breath. There are more than 8 kings of shallow water. At first, the Qin emperor of the Yunnan kingdom and the civil and military officials of the Manchu dynasty could not help but worry about whether the capital, which is the first place of goodness, would suddenly flood into so many Qi practitioners. It is easy to become a conflict between inside and outside, not people. I never thought that they would worry too much. So far, there has not been a lawsuit in which a monk from a foreign country bullied the local people. The officials of the Yunnan Ministry of Rights and the Ministry of Punishment were originally heartbroken. I'm afraid that there will be some trouble at the feet of this emperor tonight. What a moth! I was punished by His Majesty the Emperor for losing office at the meeting tomorrow, and now I feel like I can finally put my heart back on my stomach. Qing Tong suddenly stopped, with a look of disbelief. How is she? What are you doing here? Aren't you afraid of being cut off? I saw a roadside barbecue stall in front of the road. There was a plain woman in a shabby attire in a Jingchai cloth skirt. She was wearing a girl who was born in a spirit. Hands clasped a handful of skewers, with a happy face on his face. The woman turned her head and said with a smile, "Fellow Daoist Qing, we meet again." The old throne great demon Yangji, Xiaohe Paganzhou, is now her named disciple. The Ascension realm cultivator, the means of concealing his breath, can be called a consummate skill. Among the monks in the same realm, it is difficult to know the truth by means of a palm view of the mountains and rivers. Qing Tong immediately suppressed the ripples in his heart and sat at the table, not knowing how to speak for a while. The girl's cheeks were bulging, and she said vaguely, "Senior Qing Tong, what a coincidence, let's eat, they'll treat you." Qing Tong shook his head, smiled and said politely, "Forget it, I'm not used to such greasy food." Boss, another 10 skewers of grilled squid. While proving the reliability of this street food with practical actions, the girl continued to persuade, "It's so delicious, Senior Qing Tong, you should try it first, it's not knowing if you don't try it, and you'll be shocked when you try it." Qing Tong hesitated. Because it was not clear how Yang Ji and Chen Pingan agreed, Qing Tong was worried that it would be superfluous and would be unflattering to both sides, so he didn't say much. Yang Ji said, "I'm not stupid, I'm clear." Qing Tong said with a complicated expression, "Then you are still here. Why don't you just hide in the thousands of miles that the little master helped you to delineate?" Yang Ji said indifferently, "If I just hide, believe it or not, sooner or later, he will take the initiative to come to the door. How many years can I hide there? 100 years, 1,000 years. If we assume that the sword will surely come, it's better to take advantage of the present. You can go out for a walk and eat delicious food from all over the world." Qing Tong couldn't help but ask, "Aren't you afraid of meeting that Miyu on the road?" Yang Ji smiled and said, "After all, he's just an immortal for the time being, who can kill him?" Qing Tong said helplessly, "You can see it." Yang Ji turned his head and greeted the owner of the barbecue stall, "Add 10 strings of mutton and duck gizzards each, and sprinkle more pepper." The stall owner laughed loudly, "Okay, the guest officer is waiting." Yang Ji retracted his gaze, "Don't you really want to try it? It tastes good." Qing Tong still shook his head and said, "Don't persuade me, it's not about persuading me to drink on the table." Yang Ji joked, "My apprentice is thinking of you, the wealthy man of the current generation, and I can settle the account by the way. I am different. I sincerely recommend this kind of food to you." The little girl Hipe, who was exposed by the master, just lowered her head and pretended not to hear anything. Qing Tong asked, "Are you the Jingxing?" Yang Ji nodded and said, "When traveling abroad, you must have an identity that is convenient for walking." The original pseudonym of Jingxing, Yangji, changed her body and became a registered worship of the Daquan dynasty. The outside world only knew that she was a female cultivator from the Jade Pure realm from the Middle Earth. Because Han Guanghu, the first martial artist of Jinjiazu, crossed the continent and was invited to serve as the national teacher of the Yao family in Daquan, so this Jingxing that appeared out of thin air did not cause too much waves. Even if the monks on the mountain heard about this, it is only considered that the Daquan dynasty is now in full swing, and will not think about it too much. Yang Ji suddenly said, Tao Ting is here too. This fellow deliberately released a little Dao Qi, but did not deliberately restrain all Dao Qi, so Yang Ji immediately noticed the existence of the other party. Qing Tong smiled and said, On Dao Ling alone, is he considered our junior? Yang Ji said, I can say this to my face, you should forget it. Qing Tong put his arms around his chest, a tree in the courtyard, a watchdog, no one is better than the other, how can I say it? Yang Ji laughed at himself, plus another prisoner. A spirited old man in yellow, with his hands behind his back, was walking in the Beijing night market. The old is there, silently checking the truth of some Qi practitioners, with a comment, this is not a good thing, the Jade Pure realm of paper, this is still too weak, it really is a noble nascent soul that can only be regarded as a wild gold core. This it's a bit chewy, but it's actually a ghost repair in the fairyland. The two around him seem to be unambiguous. Which mountain in Tonggishao has such a heritage? It was the savage Tao Ting who left Li Huai's side, who is now known as a gentle Taoist. This time, I came to Tonggishao without authorization. Before the Daoist nun left, he had to ask Li Huai to say hello to the old blind man. He also helped Li Huai to find a bunch of legitimate reasons, otherwise the Daoist nun would not dare to leave the bottle. Chao, afraid to leave Li Huai just a few steps away, he was already dragged into a dream by the old blind man with supernatural powers. Since Daoist nun went to Tongya continent to help Chen Pingan do a big thing, Li Huai certainly had no objection, so he used a secret technique taught by the old blind man to contact the Shirwanda mountain. The reason is obviously a little displeased. When I heard it, it was not what my disciple would say. Fortunately, Li Huai saw that the opportunity was not good, so he used his own words, saying that since the Nindaoist is the servant you arranged for me, do I still can't call him? When the old blind man heard it, he thought it made sense. He just asked Li Huai to send a message to the watchdog. If Li Huai had any accident during this period, he would go by himself, whether it was a noble Taoist or a savage peach pavilion. 100,000 mountains, dig first a hole, and then bury yourself. Outside the 100,000 mountains, the Nindaoist speaks and does things, how domineering. In the old blind man's side, the Nindaoist has many dog legs, and acts as a man with his tail tucked. In an unremarkable private house in the capital, Li Ba was looking at a picture of the situation in the middle of Tongya continent hanging on the wall in his study. The ghost fairy Huang Man was sitting beside him, his heart moved slightly. Li Ba asked, someone spied on this place secretly? Huang Man said lazily, I can't eat it. There are 36 official offices in the Donghai Sea King's mansion. Li Ba is the chief official of the Department of Economics, and Huang Man is the person in charge of the incense department. February Erlong raised his head. On the previous day, in the capital of Yunyan Kingdom in the land of slaps, a rare patriarchal hall on the mountain was formed. Today, Li Ba, whose Dao name is Tempered Palm, occupies a place in the patriarch's hall. Before they landed on the shore, it was like a trip to the mountains and water to relax. After leaving the Jitsue temple in the Yu family's capital, Wangzhou, the king of the East Sea, still had to look at the ferry channel of the return to the ruins because of his duty. They took Gong Yan and Wang Qiongju away and re-entered the sea. She then asked Li Ba, the ghost fairy in Jade Taoist Huang Man, and Wufu Shiman to stay in the capital of Yunyan Kingdom. According to the pre-agreed agreement with Cui Dongshan, in that funny patriarchal hall, they only need to give Li Ba of his own water house. Leave one just a chair. As for the Huang man in Xianrenjing and Wufuxi man in Jiujing, there is no need to squat there without shitting. At that time, Wang Zhu made an astonishing move and threw a celadone pen-washing-like object to Cui Dongshan, which contained more than 15,000 grain rain coins. This means that the immortal money needed in the midterm for the excavation of Dadu has already been obtained. In addition, Wang Zhu made a request to Cui Dongshan. With the extra Guyu money, Cui Dongshan asked Cui Dongshan to help build a land summer courtyard near Jitsue Temple. That Cui Dongshan was a generous man, and he even directly allocated the Jitsue Temple to the Donghai Sea King's mansion. Shiman, who was walking in the yard outside the house to practice boxing, smiled and said, "Huang man, can you find any trace of the other party? I'll go meet for a while." Huang man said, "The cultivator's consciousness has been swept away, and there is no trace to be found. If you really want to follow the vine, it is not impossible, but it is not easy. I have to use some unique methods." Li Ba shook his head and said, "Forget it, it's better to have less than one more thing." Huang man smiled and said, "On the Yu family side, is that really enough? Yu Linyu seems to be living nearby now and has been worried." Li Ba said, "The master himself said it was boring, so let's not make a fuss about it." Huang man said, "Then the crown prince is a false alarm. His Royal Highness Yu Linyu, the crown prince of the Yu dynasty, is now in the capital. He has followed his wife's advice before, so don't rush to send a letter to Tianmu Academy to complain. Facts have proved that this choice is extremely correct. The Deng Heijin, who has a respectable status but has an unpredictable temperament, seems to have simply forgotten about it. This will shake the fundamental major event of the Yu dynasty and the country, and it will just be a thing of the past." The previous real Dragon King Zhu, who was aggressive, not only did not appreciate the new era title Shenlong of the Yu dynasty, but made a rude remark, asking the court of the Yu dynasty to sue Huang Shanshou, the military general who once made indelible achievements and returned to his hometown. He also threatened that if Yu Linyu didn't copy it, he wouldn't have to be a prince. The implication is that if you can't be the prince of Chiendi, how can you sit on the dragon chair? This time Yu Linyu dared to come to the capital of Yunyan Kingdom, not necessarily without the intention of taking the initiative to show good intentions to the Donghai Sea King's mansion. On the other side of the night market, the old man in yellow squinted his eyes. The middle-aged man walking across from him looked like he was worried about the country and the people. Yes, he was a little bit of the righteous. Another fairy. Uncommon. I'm afraid in my hometown in the wild world over there, this guy can be beaten by immortals. I can't see that Tong Yezhou is quite talented. According to the master's hometown, is the gold out of the dung heap. The man took the initiative to smile with his heart, but Daoist Nin Daoist narrowed his eyes and said, "Who are you?" The other party introduced himself. "I am from the great dragon Chiu in the Middle Earth, my name is Situ Mengjing, and the road name is Longbeard. For example, tonight's generation is temporarily serving as the acting mountain owner of Tongyi's house Xiaolongqiu." Daoist Nin nodded. "Oh, big and small Longqiu, I heard about it. It seems that Yuan Yang's fighting method is not small, and it is already known all over the world. Are you looking for an opportunity to fight another Ascension Realm old cultivator? That is to say, he has been with the master for a long time, and his ears and eyes are familiar, otherwise there will be an extra no in this perfunctory sentence." Daoist Nin suddenly asked, "Didn't you hear that Xiaolongqiu sealed the mountain? Is this the Lord Situ?" You feel that asking such a question is a bit of a slap in the face of the other party. If you want to say that your solid realm is there, of course, you are not afraid of the other party being an immortal. It's just that this time is different from the past. Talking and doing things are too careless, and it is easy to implicate the master Li Huai without a good reputation. If Li Huai suffers grievances, the old blind man will be unhappy, and he will lose half his life if he does not die. That's the truth anyway. So the Daoist Nen immediately changed his face, squeezed out a smile that he thought was sincere, and said politely, "I'm just asking casually, fellow Taoists, don't take it to heart. If there is any offense, I'll contact you here." Longbeard Taoist compensation. No, I sincerely apologize. In fact, Sita Mengjing was also wondering, how could he be so good at talking tonight and know how to behave on the mountain tonight? Sita Mengjing was puzzled and explained with a smile, "Xiao Longqiu is indeed closing the mountain, but De Longqiu heard that Dadu is going to be excavated here, so he thought of doing his best. I have dealt with some cases here. Door transaction will return soon, Xiaolongqiu." Daoist Nen said with a hearty smile, "Why should Daoist Longbeard rush back to the top of the mountain? It just so happens that I have just arrived here, so I don't have any acquaintances. Daoist friend might as well stay for a few more days. How many times do we have a good drink? Dare to ask where your friends live. Can you have a free house, son? If it's convenient, I don't have to bother to find a place to stay. This trip, I will find a chance to meet a few more friends on the mountain, and I will accompany Li Huai on a long trip in the future." It was probably because the Daoist Nen was too warm-hearted, which caught Sita Mengjing a little off guard. Just after a little thought, Sita Mengjing still invited Daoist Nen to drink at his residence. A great cultivator of the Ascension realm, who must be stared at by the Confucian temple now, will never be free from injustice or hatred, so he comes to plot against himself and the big and small Longqiu. Some time ago, Feijin sent a letter to Xiaolongqiu, who had indeed declared the closure of the mountain to the outside world, on Mixufeng, the Xiande peak of Qingping Sword Sect. Looking at the content of the letter signed by Qingping Sword Sect Chui Dongshan, Sita Mengjing laughed and laughed. "Sect Master Chui, are you collecting junk?" Just thinking of the uproar about the excavation of Dadu, Sita Mengjing quickly understood the intention of the Chui sect master. In the letter, the other party suggested that they should be on Xiaolongqiu's side and not rush to declare that the guardians who removed the two genealogical ultimatums, mountain worship and deportation, can be thrown to the Yunyan kingdom. You might as well give them a chance to make up for their deeds without paying them wages. It's enough to be a coolie for more than 10 years. This is called a small punishment and a big admonition. This is a good thing delivered to the door. If Sita Mengjing is only a cultivator of Delongqiu, he may still feel awkward and unwilling to do it. I have swept them out of the house, and there is no reason to withdraw the decree. But now that he is the owner of Xiaolongqiu Mountain, he suppressed the discomfort in his heart, replied with a letter, promised this matter, and thanked Chui Dongshan in the letter. If the mountain had not been closed, it would have been a good choice for Xiaolongqiu to participate in the excavation of Dadu. Following this line of thought, Sita Mengjing just thought for a while, and immediately wrote a letter and sent it to Delongqiu in the Middle Earth, and asked the Zhu Shirtang to send a number of mirror construction site immortals, led by them, and each brought a group of direct disciples and people outside the sect. The disciples came over and went to Tongya continent together to help Dadu excavate. It is not very useful, but it is more or less a heart, and it can be regarded as Tong Yizhou Xiaolongqiu expressed his stance on this matter, so as to restore some reputation on the mountain. The savage Tao Ting, who already had half of the mountain refining art, is now the famous Haoran Nen Daoist. If you add the old master of Heluo, who came here in secret, the big demon of the old throne of the wild will stop. These two Ascension realm monsters, one moving mountains and the other falling seas, are both the most skilled natal supernatural powers. Yulindu, a large fairy named Tongyin, is particularly eye-catching. Not only is the Tongyin fairy very eye-catching, but also because there is a Daijiangxian surnamed Mi on this fairy, who is in charge of the Tongyin fairy. Mi Jianxian only occasionally walks out of the building to relax, leaning on the railing, wearing a sword in white, and having an outstanding demeanor. On the fairy side, there are often female cultivators from various immortal mansions lingering here. Most of them are young women, just looking for a glimpse of Miye's style. Every time Miyu appeared, there were screams from the women. As one of the initiators of the excavation of Dadu, Qingping's sword sect came out this time, and his momentum was not small. The team was led by the accountant Chong Qiu and the chief worshipper Miyu, Jing Xingfing Chao Qingqing, Jin Dan Jian Xiu Tao Ran, and Young Jian Xiu Higu and Yu Xihui. Nascent Soul Realm Lao Qiu Du, from the Shang sect, has Shui Jia Hongxia, who is also in Nascent Soul Realm, and Yunzi, who is still in Dragon Gate Realm for the time being. There are also puppets including Jin Shi, Mo Yuer, and mountain pickers, with a large allocation of Fu Luli Shi who is used to open up mountains and rivers. Tonight, Miyu is entertaining guests in person. Chong Qiu and Chao Qingqing are really not suitable. Because they are two hometown Jinshu who came from afar, one looks like a teenager and the other looks like an old woman. They are named Xing Yun and Lu Shui respectively. Not long after they came to Tongyi's Hao, they went to Xiandu Mountain first, but they rushed straight to the capital of Yunyan Kingdom. Inside the house, Xing Yun smiled and said, "Are you Miyu?" Miyu nodded and said, "I am." Fortunately, Miyu stayed at the Summer Palace, and often helped the hidden officials to do some chores for filing secret records. Otherwise, if they were replaced by sword cultivators like the Great Wall of Sword Qi, they might not know the origins of these two old sword cultivators. The two old swordsmen who had been away from home for many years, who were on Miyu's side before, showed their own flying swords, and then gave a handwritten letter from Qi Tingji. On the monogram at the end of the secret letter, Qi Tingji used sword Qi as the pen and ink. Miye's investigation was correct. Even if their identities were confirmed, then Feijin sent a letter to Jiaisfeng, Luopa Mountain. Xing Yun wondered, "I remember when Mihu was a child, his appearance was not good enough." Lu Shui nodded and said bluntly, "It's ugly." Xing Yun couldn't help but ask, "You two brothers really share the same father and mother?" Miyu smiled and said, "It's a real brother." This kind of unpleasant words, Miyu in his hometown, has long heard the year's calluses, never pay attention. What's more, the local sword cultivators of the Great Wall of Sword Qi are rude. Like Sun Juyuan who likes to be arty, after all, it is a minority. As for Qin Shi, the head of the Qin family in Taishiang Street, he is really knowledgeable. It's just a strange thing about Miyu. Xing Yun and Lu Shui are swordsmen of the same generation. The two are about the same age. It is also a perfect match, but the two of them are not pleasing to the eye. According to the secret records of the Summer Palace, if they become a Taoist partner, their cultivation realm can be greatly improved, but they left the Great Wall of Sword Qi. The reason is because you don't want to see the right square. Lu Shui hesitated for a moment, but still said frankly, "In the wild world, I saw Xiao Tan, a hidden official, and she didn't embarrass me, otherwise I wouldn't be able to see Qingtu alive." Xing Yun apparently heard about this for the first time, and sneered, "Who didn't know that you were a follower behind the hidden official Xiao Tan when you were a child? It's not surprising that she let you go." They still seem to be used to calling Xiao Min a hidden official. Lu Shui sneered and said, "How much better are you than me? You will slap on the horse and beg old Dong to teach you the best swordsmanship. Have you passed it on to you? How many points have you learnt?" Miyu didn't want to get involved in this bickering. There was silence in the house. Xing Yun said slowly, "Why did Gao Qing die?" Lu Shui said, "Why didn't you tell me why Zhou Qing died? You're dying of heartache now." Xing Yun was silent again. Miyu asked, "Drink some wine." Lu Shui raised his chin towards Xing Yun and said, "Bring him 2 pots so that he can use wine to drown his sorrows." Xing Yun snorted coldly, stood up, left the room, and went to the bow to take a breath. The old woman glanced at a sword hanging on the wall, with a look of approval, and said, "Not bad." Miyu said, "Chen Chu Nan, a savvy scholar, once gave moonlight and helped to refine the sword. This saber of mine has the appearance it is today." The old woman asked suspiciously, "A scholar like Chen Chu Nan, would you like to have a relationship with someone like you?" Miyu smiled and said, "Thanks to the hidden official." The old woman asked, "You seem to recognize Chen Pingon very much." Miyu said, "Senior Lu is best to call Chen Ingguan." The old woman smiled and said, "Just because he is the suzerain of your sect." Miyu answered the question, "In terms of military merit, according to the calculation method of the Summer Palace, the two of you together are not as good as me alone. In terms of realm, I am a sword immortal, and you and Xing Yun are only swordsmen in the Jade Pure realm." The old woman pretended to be surprised. "So it is." Miyu smiled and said, "In the Great Wall of Sword Qi, Dao Ling can't be a meal, nor can he be a drink." The old woman stood up. Miyu followed and got up. "Two seniors, what are your plans next?" "Don't drive Lu Shui and Xing Yun to the Dragon Elephant Sword sect because of their poor hospitality." Lu Shui smiled and said, "Look at it again." Arriving at the stern, the old woman raised her hand and stroked her temples lightly. Who was not a beauty when he was young? In a mansion under the name of Honglu Temple in the capital, almost every few days, Lu Yuzhou will change a snail shell dojo with a different scenery. In the study, there was a bamboo mat. Lu Yuzhou was holding chopsticks in one hand and snail noodles in the other, devouring it, but staring at a map on the wall. A stretch of river in the future Dadu is marked on the map with different colors, like a colorful rope. Each section looks like a bamboo knot, which is a section of water. Each force is responsible for the excavation of a section of Dadu, and the construction period should not be delayed. If a certain force is progressing smoothly, it can be invited to help the remaining forces that have not been able to reach it. Spend money to eliminate disasters, so as not to be held accountable by Zhu Shirtang for missing work. As for the Helong matter, there is a special immortal master at the Zhu Shirtang who is in charge of this matter. The officials from various countries present at the time were almost all elites. After a quick calculation in their hearts, they immediately saw that this algorithm for assessing merit was extremely beneficial to the forces under the mountain. So they, in their own way, looked at, "Do you really have no objection to those gods on the mountain sitting opposite the Zhu Shirtang?" The Ministry of Rights and Punishments sent out offerings to the immortal masters, the Ministry of Works dispatched various craftsmen and servants, and the Ministry of Households paid out of their pockets. As far as the Dadu waterway is concerned, try to avoid the 5 mountains of various countries and those mountain temples, so as not to commit the taboo that the mountains and rivers conflict with each other. Of course, if the court of a certain country is willing to replace the old site, it is another matter. Big or small, Dadu passes through 52 countries, and even if a new country is established recently, it will not exceed 60. Among them, there are 34 vassal courts that own the suzerain state, and unless there are special circumstances, they cannot participate in the discussions of the Zushi Hall. Therefore, during the discussion of the Zhu Shirtang, many small country monarchs, generals and ministers came here, or had some relations with the suzerain, hoping to have a seat, or simply came here to protest, and there were people who scolded the streets. The Dafu Academy, located in the middle of a continent, was visited by the deputy head of the mountain, Lu Wei, with a sage named Yang Pu. The Wuxi Academy in the south was led by the deputy mountain chief, Wang Zai, with a gentleman, but the Tianmu Academy in the north was strange, and only came here. A gentleman. It stands to reason that the domineering deputy mountain chief Wen Yu is in public and private, and he should show his face no matter what. However, these few deputy mountain masters and gentlemen of Tongyi's Hao Academy are actually just passing through the scene, and they will listen to the meeting. Unsurprisingly, except for the sage Yang Pu, they have all left Yunyan country one after another. There are also a few unexpected and interesting things, such as Xiaolongqiu, who invited a group of mirror workers from the Shangzong Dalongqiu. Then there is the Taiping Mountain now, together with the mountain master and the 3 worshippers, there are also a group of good-looking qi practitioners. It seems that the realm is not low, and they must be from other continents, because they have just started to learn talents. Start learning Tong Yezhou Yayan. Of course, the most eye-catching is the Qingping sword sect, who turned from a river dragon into a local snake. In general, foreign powers start in one continent, and it is not so easy to gain a firm foothold, that is, Tongye continent. To the north, Tongye sect is like a mountain. The mighty Peach Leaf Alliance in the past is now got a little embarrassed. Since the Daquan dynasty in Pushan Yunkatang, as well as the immortal houses such as Jindingwen and Beilongdong, seem to be excluded, there are signs of detachment. And once you miss this event, Jindingwen and, in Tonggishao, the weight of the words on the mountain will naturally be greatly reduced. It is reasonable to have 2 chairs in that ancestral hall. Therefore, some people who temporarily added seats in the middle of it were more noticeable, such as the female warriors of the Yu clan of the Xuanmi dynasty in the Middle Earth, Yu Yufu. Especially that Lu Yuzhou. Good guy, this is the only son of Lu Jubao, the of wealth, Lu Jubao. Some good people commented that if the men who were full and supported, they all came to Pushan Huang Yiyun and Daquan Empress. Then at least half of the fairies came to Lu Yuzhou. Under what list, catching a son-in-law is a fart, can it be comparable to being a daughter-in-law directly to Lu? In addition, there is Shi Yuyan, the servant of the Ministry of Industry of the Dechong dynasty, a former infatuated species who is said to have returned to the prodigal son. In order to support a fairy on the Washinshan Rouge list in the blessed land of the Cloud Caves, he did not hesitate to spend public funds, and the emperor, who was almost enraged, ordered him to be dragged out and beheaded and pulled down. It is such a young man from an official family. He should have fine skin and tender meat. He never wanted to be tanned and strong, so that people would not recognize him at once. In the study room, there is also the only direct disciple of Aixian, the only Wufu Pei Oxiang, who was born in Leigong Temple, Lu Suiyu. She stood at the table, looking at a handed-down painting by Lu Yuzhou. Lu Suiyu smiled and said, "If Qin Pingon or Chao Ci see this painting, you probably won't be able to eat it and walk around." It turned out that Lu Yuzhou painted a famous battle between green and white of the meritorious forest. Chao in white, Qin in blue. The two stopped fighting, and they fought together like a slapstick fight in the market. Among them, Chao Ci had a blue nose and a swollen face. Lu Yuzhou grinned. Lu Suiyu asked, "Have talked to the Emperor Qin of Yunyan Kingdom. Do you really plan to round up all the ink ingots produced in one country?" Lu Yuzhou nodded and said, "Ink comes out of Yunyan and travels alone on a continent." "That's good. Definitely don't worry about sales. I didn't make money before, but it was limited by 2 single sales. It just so happens that the most important thing for our Lu family is the business route, nothing more than on the list of the family ferry, adding Yunyan Mo, it does not take up much space. I did a rough calculation, and the profit is not low. I only worry that after a few decades, the sales will be completely opened, and the output of Yunyan ink will not be able to keep up." Lu Suiyu joked, "Is business experience really innate?" Lu Yuzhou smiled and said, "I just saw too much." Lu Suiyu laughed it off. Lu Yuzhou suddenly asked, "Aunt Lu, except for a few continents who want to take revenge against the wild world, the Middle Earth Shenzhou and Lixiazu, why do you think there are so many people who are so willing to fight? Why are they not afraid of death at all?" "Woolen cloth," Lu Suiyu said casually, "bloodness, interests, and reputation, all have their own reasons. It is only said that the qi practitioners on the mountain can be recorded in the chronology of the Zhu Shirtang, which is a reason not to be underestimated. As for the warriors of the Yamashita court as a soldier, he naturally thinks that he will be able to make a fortune in the battlefield, and he probably thinks that it is a very honorable thing to be able to enter the genealogy and local county annals. Liu Yuzhou sighed softly and continued to eat snail noodles. There was a creaking sound in the study. Lu Suiyu asked curiously, "How did you think about what Gu Kan said?" Liu Yuzhou said, "Wait and see." Lu Suiyu hesitated for a moment, then said, "He'll say something more. It's better not to get too close to people like Gu Kan. If you weren't Liu Yuzhou, you'd better say it." Liu Yuzhou said, "If I weren't Liu Yuzhou, what would Gu Kan do to me?" Recently, Lu Suiyu came up with some words from Yuaofu, and learned more about the inside story about the encounter in the wild world. How inside, it is Chao Ci who is in charge of the first move, Unstoppable. But in the end, the cultivator who established the victory was Gu Kan from Beidasheng. It was his immortal hand, combined with the 11 punches delivered by Chao Ci, that broke the deadlock. She has a tenacious heart like a stubborn husband, and talking with Lu Suiyu about this matter is a little distracted. Palpitation, it can be seen that the murderous degree of that fight. On the other side of the wild world, taking advantage of the right time and place, there are bamboo crates, flowing white, autumn clouds, Taixin, Slim, Ziwumeng, Jindan, Yuaning, Yupu, and glistening. On this side of the vast world, only human beings are relatively dominant. There are Chao Ci, Fu Su, Yuanyu, Gu Kan, Yuaofu, Chunqing, Xiao Yaoguang, Shumi, Su Bai. Of course, there is also Jiang Shangzhen, whose Taoist name has collapsed, and Feng Shuetao, whose Taoist name is Green Secret. The wind comes and the sea stands, and the clouds hold the mountains. At dawn, Lu Mao, who was dressed as a Taoist priest, and a man in a Confucian shirt stood side by side on the west coast of Tongya continent, and the sea breeze with a faint smell was blowing towards him. The latter made a strange gesture. He stretched out one hand, palm up, and raised another hand, palm down. Previously, in Ichisian County in the land of Jiangyi, the Yunyan Kingdom, Cui Dongshan found a scholar who was condensed from Tongyi's literary movement. This person gave himself a pseudonym or a Taoist name, Barnyard Officer. Now he is the guest of the Mishua Peak of Xianda Mountain, which is rather odd, not the named guest of Qingping Sword Sect, but somewhat similar to the identity of the family's clear guest. Cui Dongshan promised this person that he could go to the Zhongta Confucian temple together in the future, and asked Jingsheng Shiping for advice. Lu Mao took out a celestial map published with permission from the Confucian temple from his arms. Not far behind them is the Hailong Mountain. In the Taoist temple in the mountains, Cui Dongshan, the biggest pilgrim and gold lord, secretly built 2 buildings to observe the stars at night and measure the transportation of the East China Sea. Lu Mao has now completed his elixir, and when the official work of the Ministry of Engineering of the Daquan dynasty is over, he will come here to practice Taoism and help Cui Dongshan secretly build a planetarium and seismograph. Of course, the drawings are drawn by Cui Dongshan. Lu, who is proficient in arithmetic Mao, is most responsible for chores and post-maintenance of the 2 instruments. The barnyard officer asked, "Daoist Longzhou, when will you return those engravings?" Lu Mao was so aggrieved, he couldn't say that sect master Cui was spewing blood and deliberately framed the blame, right? The barnyard officer took a step back. "I can buy it back with money." Since Lu Mao couldn't explain anything, he simply smashed the jar and smashed it. "Don't talk about it." The barnyard officer frowned and said, "You really stole it." Lu Mao, whose crotch was full of yellow mud, took a deep breath and said, "Whatever you want." The barnyard officer squatted down, holding water in his hand. Only when the water flows to the sea can it be called blasphemy, but this is only one of the necessary conditions. Just like the buried river of the Daquan dynasty, the Jinhai Pei River near Pushun, the Donghai woman, Ko Xian Canal, and the local water Qinghongjun, they could not become the righteous of the river, and there is only the Rin River, which is thousands of miles long. Several Hebos, golden and jade spectrum. The divine position on the ultimatum is only from the 7th rank. However, in the vast world, there are 2 rivers entering the sea with water veins no more than 3 or 4,000 miles away, and they still won the title of Dadu. The barnyard officer returned the seawater in his palm to the sea and said, I heard that the Daquan dynasty where Lu Guanzhou is located has a very large-scale dock on the mountain. Is there another one under construction? Lu Mao nodded and said, His Majesty has great talent and vision, and has a very far-sighted vision. This kind of dock for the construction of the Xianjia ferry, especially the cross-continental ferry, is extremely cost-intensive. It may take 5 to 10 years to build a ferry. The embryo of the ferry has a long time to go before it is actually launched. To build a cross-continental ferry, this is a groundbreaking move in Tongisao, which is unprecedented. The barnyard officer said, compared to the Dali dynasty in Aquarius, the gap is still not small. Lu Mao said, it's boring to say that. Not to mention the Daquan dynasty, even if it is the old 10 dynasties of the vast world, who can continue to build sword boats and mountain ferries like the Dali Song clan, just like flying kites and eating dumplings. Lu Mao remembered something that Cui Dongshan had asked before when he took him to Yunnan country. Tong Yezhou used to belong to the continent, and the local monks had their eyes above the top, but in such a place, there is neither a cross-continental ferry, and they never want to have a dadu. Do you really just like this kind of seclusion and isolation of the state? Nest horizontal. Whether Tong Yi Zong Du Mao or Jade Gui Zong Sun Yuan, they are not stupid, right? If you regard a land of Tongisao as a mountain, what do you think? At that time, Lu Mao blurted out 2 words without hesitation, finalize the mountain. Cui Dongshan nodded, who said that rottenwood can't be carved, obviously it can. Tong Yezhe's sect deliberately did not go to the Great Wall of Sword Qi, and failed to carry the luck of swordsmanship from the Great Wall of Sword Qi to feed back a continent. The sword repair is scattered, and it is not a climate. 3,000 years ago, before the battle of slaying the dragon, the Aquarius continent in the north only said that the ancient Shu land was like a cloud of swordsmen, and the sword light was everywhere. Lu Guan, do you really think that the monks of Tong Yezhou are not envious or jealous? Afterwards, the qi of Aquarius Island declined. 3,000 years of Hedong and 3,000 years of Hishi, Feng Shui took turns, and Tongisao began to overlook Beipingzu. During this 3,000 years, there was some plan. Just because someone wanted to, relying on an ancient method of sealing mountains, lock the number of mountains and rivers in a continent, so as to spawn a similar 14 realms that are in a good place. Of course it's stupid. But the victory is certain. If it hadn't been for the war against Hauran in the wild, Tong Yezhou would have been beaten into a sieve that leaked from all sides, otherwise there would indeed be a chance here. It may be Du Mao, it may be Jiang Shangzhen chosen by Sun Yuan, or it may be Wei Ying, in short, has a chance to fight. Before leaving the capital, Lu Mao, who was in charge of supervising the construction of the Jiju Pen, met with His Majesty the Emperor again. Yao Jinji looked up at the sky and asked Lu Mao with a smile, "Have you ever seen a black cloud?" "The kind of black cloud that overwhelms the city." Lu Mao was stunned by this mindless question. Fortunately, His Majesty the Emperor did not betray him. He continued. "It is said that when there are enough floating sword boats in the Dali dynasty, such a picture will appear. There is a saying in the Mirage City of the Big Spring of Lu Mao's children. The female emperor Yao Jinji used to be in the imperial study. She held a yellowed bamboo painting pole and slammed it on the territory of several countries including the Daquan dynasty, borders, hinterland, and capital. She and a group of important ministers in the temple spoke sternly, that the foundation of a strong country is territory, territory, or territory. in the north of Tongye continent, Tianmu Academy. Wen Yu, the deputy head of the mountain, went out and visited the northern dynasty and many small countries. Except for a very few imperial courts, Wen Yu did not reveal his identity. It's like a quiet Jingcha grand plan. Knowing that when Shanchang returned to the academy, there was still a somewhat relaxed atmosphere for studying, and he was immediately awe-inspiring. In the academy, Wen Yu is mainly responsible for the teaching of strategy and arithmetic. In fact, he is not the kind of Taoist who teaches with a straight face. On the contrary, when Wen Yu starts teaching, he speaks witty. But the academy, from the gentlemen and sages to all the students, is most in awe of this Wen Shanchang. After Wen Yu got off the boat, he did not return to his study, and went to the back mountain of the academy on foot. When he came to a secluded courtyard, the mountain leader Fan Jiandan, the deputy mountain leader Kong Kai, and the two old masters were already waiting at the gate of the courtyard. Wen Yu bowed to them and chatted a few words at the door. In fact, for the details, Fan Shanchang had already passed a letter to Wen Yu. The LV Bilong, whose real name is Dragon Palace, is on the surface the spectator of Jiquigwen, the protector of the country in the Yu dynasty, and her more hidden true identity is the direct disciple of Wan Yaozong's patriarch. She left the sect in the early years and came to Tongye continent alone, in order to enter the 5 realms in the future and create a sect for Wan Yaozong. For this reason, the sect master Han Yushu did not hesitate to teach her 2 extremely superior ancient Tao methods in private, so that Lu Bilong could become the nascent soul, and promised her that after the event was completed, not only would she be allowed to expand her Tao veins on her own, in the future Yaozong also she will give her a batch of cultivator embryos on time. In the Wan Yaozong Patriarch's Hall, she can have at least 2 seats in this line of Taoism. When the demon clan quickly occupied most of Tongyi's territory with the momentum of destroying and destroying, according to the instructions of Wan Yaozong of Sanshan Fudi, it was to let her try her best to keep the vitality of the Yu dynasty and hide in the secret landscape of Qingzhuan's sect. Wait until the demon after the clan withdrew from Haoran world, Wan Yaozong issued another decree to her, secretly annexing the Qingzhuan sect with only 2 Jindan cultivators, hoping that she could build another sect on this basis. In this way, when Wan Yaozong, relying on the fighting exploits made by the gods, established the next sect in Tongy's and then waited for Lu Bilong to successfully enter the realm of Jade in the future, the Qingzhuan sect could be replaced by the Qingzhuan sect. And she, retreat broke before entering the realm, find an opportunity to join Wan Yao's sect and become a genealogical cultivator. At that time, Wan Yao's sect can be promoted to authentic and have both the upper and lower sections. The academy had already interrogated the Dragon Palace once before, and the Jiquigwen LV Bilong, who had sacrificed his life, had said what he should have said and what he should not have said. It's just that the Tianmu Academy is still inconclusive, and Long Gong knows this well, and is waiting for the deputy mountain chief, Wen Yu. In Jiquigwen before, the boy in white, whose real identity is still unknown, used the identity of Wen Yu to scare her, and it worked very well. Because Wen Yu and the 3 of them all wore a mountain jade plaque symbolizing their identity, they were able to ignore the landscape restrictions in the yard and step into it. The Dragon Palace, who was detained here, was notified in advance that he had already stood outside the main house door, greeted the 3 academy chiefs, and wished them 1,000 blessings. When Long Gong saw Wen Yu, the real academy, for some reason, at first glance, Long Gong was afraid of this young scholar. The whole person instantly fell into an ice cave, and there was an involuntary chill down the back. Of course, she was also afraid of the boy in white, but she felt more absurd than all. So Wen Yu glanced at the Dragon Palace, and she lowered her head subconsciously, not daring to look at him. The 2 old masters looked at each other and felt amused. Sure enough, it has to be our Vice-Chancellor Wen. Although it is a prisoner, but the Dragon Palace is on the side of the academy, in addition to being unable to leave the courtyard. In fact, no prisoner should be treated and there are many books in the courtyard. Now that Tonggishao Mountain is going up and down the mountain, there is already a tacit consensus. If you do something wrong, don't fall into the hands of Wen Yu of Tianmu Academy. At the foot of the mountain, between the light and the heavy, the Tianmu Academy may be able to deal lightly, but once the monks on the mountain violate the ban, the academy will be strict and strict. When the three academies were rebuilt one after another, especially when Wen Yu served as the deputy head of Tianmu Academy, Tong Yizhou soon figured out some ways, so the monks and local monsters in the north of Tonggishao felt guilty. Those who can't cover the fire will take the initiative to go to Dafu Academy in the middle or Wuxi Academy in the south. They would rather take a long detour and take risks than go to Tianmu Academy with Wen Yu. Net, immortal to lose half-life. Because of all convictions and punishments, the three academies will be announced to the public as soon as possible. There is no suspense. Tianmu Academy's punishment for cheap practitioners is far heavier than Dafu and Wuxi Academy. Crossing the threshold of the main house, the three mountain chiefs sat in a row, and the Dragon Palace stood alone on the opposite side. After Fan Jiandan and Kong Kai were seated, Wen Yu sat down and pressed his hand twice towards the female cultivator of the nascent soul realm opposite. Since you haven't been convicted, don't be too cautious, sit down and talk. When Longgong heard the words, his heartstrings tensed instantly. In fact, when yes words are better not to say. She sat on a chair like on pins and needles. Wan Yaozong either has secretly colluded with the Wild Demon clan, or deliberately concealed the information, which is known to be unreported. In my opinion, the former is obviously more likely. Wen Ye's first sentence today is equivalent to drawing a conclusion in advance for the interrogation that has not yet started today. Not only Dragon Palace, but also for Wan Yaozong and Sect Master Han Yushu. The mountain chief, Fan Jian, said nothing. Wen Yu continued, when the Dragon Palace left Wan Yaozong, it was too long before the wild monsters attacked the Great Wall of Sword Qi, and Wan Yaozong sent her to Tongya Continent, under the pseudonym Lu Bilong, and entered Lujingji. Cuiguan, serving as the Yu family, the dynasty's protector of the country, and then led a large group of people to hide in the Qingzhuan sect. This series of actions are intertwined. Wan Yaozong and Han Yushu are obviously prepared. Deputy Chief Kong Kai couldn't help but said, Sect Master Han is a veteran immortal, and Sanshan Blessed Land is an ancient secret place with a long history and hidden inheritance. Sect Master Han cannot speculate through secret techniques and hexagrams. The time of day has changed. Then plan ahead for it. Although Sanshan Fudi is suspected of being alone, it is only a matter of human nature. First, Han Yushu is not a Confucian child, and Wan Yaozong has no connection with the Confucian temple, so when Shanchong asserted, will it be a little wrong? After all, the avenues of the Sanshan Blessed Land are not clear to the outside world, and the Confucian temple and the academy are still a little confused. It is one of the ancient dojos of Mr. Sanshan Joho, so there may be some mysterious inheritance of magical powers, which is the only knowledge that outside cultivators cannot access. Assuming that Han Yushu did calculate the subsequent war, regardless of the hexagram or the result of mental arithmetic, whether it was clear or vague, in such a big event, it was a bit difficult to ask Wan Yaozong to go to remind the Confucian temple early. Is it true that the Lu family of the Yin and Yang family in China is a wine bag and a rice bag? Just like you, a remote Wanyao sect, you can see the stars clearly. What's more, not to mention the entire vast world, but only to talk about the Middle Earth and Divine Continent, there are many strange people and scholars, except for the Lu family, there are many people who are proficient in celestial phenomena and divination. With the background of Wan Yaozong sitting on the three mountains and blessed land, it is not impossible to open the door one day and have both upper and lower gates at the same time, and then through your foreshadowing outside, it is not impossible to complete the feat of becoming an authentic ancestral courtyard. It was only through this series of careful planning that it was concluded that Wan Yaozong and Han Yushu had secretly colluded with the Wild Demon clan. After all, there was no evidence. The leader of the mountain, Fan Jiandan, was born in the line of Yaxing and was a disciple of Yaxing. Vice-Chancellor Kong Kai was born in the Spring and Autumn Academy's lineage, and the cultural line belongs to the Gongyang school, which has changed several times between the explicit and implicit schools. Therefore, the second sentence of Deputy Mountain Chief Wen is very Wen Yu. I have collected information through different channels, carefully studied Wan Yaozong, and finally came to the conclusion that you are suspected of colluding with the demon clan, which is not small. Suspected crimes never exist, and suspected crimes never exist. The two ways of judging cases are one heaven and one earth. Wen Ye's way of doing things is very simple. It is not the academy who came to find evidence and finally convicted Han Yushu. But you, Han Yushu, must find evidence by yourself, and then take the initiative to prove your innocence with the academy. Long Gong's face turned pale in an instant. When you asked indifferently, how can Han Yushu ensure that you have no objection and will not rely on Tong Yi Zong or Yu Gui Zong, and choose to establish your own business outside? Long Gong replied, Wan Yaozong can give it, but Tongyi's Hao Zongman can't give it. She explained in detail why she said this. The preacher of Long Gong is an old Yuaning who is worshipped by the ancestors of Wanyao sect. She has passed away for a long time. As the eldest disciple, Long Gong has become the pillar of her lineage of Taoism, and she wants to help her master to protect the family business. It's just that the incense withered in this vein. Now, including the Dragon Palace, there are only 6 people left, and the remaining 5 are all chi practitioners in the middle 5 realm, and the best qualified nephew is also the Dragon Gate. This is why Ryugong thought so about relocating his. The Taoism has been carried forward, and if she turns to rely on Tong Yizong or Yuguizong, with Han Yushu's means, I am afraid that her Taoism will be completely cut off. When you asked, since Han Yushu has set up a sect secret ban on you, if you have any dissent, he will detect clues, which can make you die immediately. Why do you still come to the academy on your own initiative? Although Long Gong had doubts in her heart, because of these things, Deputy Mountain Chief Kong had asked about it before, but she still repeated it honestly, saying that it was the great heavenly master outside Longhu Mountain, and Mr. Liang helped to peel the cocoon. The former white-clothed boy with an unpredictable temperament taught her a clever trick when Jaquiguan parted. On Wen Ye's side of the academy, all the things that were unclear were turned to the great master Liang Shuang. Push. With this shield, take care of your life without worry, not to mention that if you surrender yourself, the academy will not kill you. When Yu and Long Gong said, the cultivators from the Wanyao sect who share the same Dharma line as you will all come to the academy with Han Yushu. Dragon Palace breathed a sigh of relief. It was like an amulet given to her by Tianmu Academy. Lest Wan Yaozong settle accounts with her in the autumn, and dare not wrestle with the academy, he will use her cultivator to vent his anger. Fan Jiandan said, this matter is very important. Do we need to report to the Confucian Temple immediately? Deputy Mountain Chief Kong Kai nodded. It was more safe to do so. When you said, of course we need to report it, but it's easy to startle the snake when Long Gong leaves. When Wan Yaozong comes back to his senses, the daylilies are cold. Although there is a puppet left at the Jitsui Temple in Luojing, it can't hide the ordinary monks of Wan Yaozong, but it may not be able to hide the Han Yushu of the immortal realm. In the name of the academy, I sent a letter to Han Yushu, saying that there was something to discuss. As soon as I received the letter, I asked him to come to Tianmu Academy in person and explain all the problems. Fan Jiandan hesitated a little. After all, he is the head of a sect of immortals, and Han Yushu still manages the Blessed Land with a long history of 3 mountains. Will our academy do this? Wen Yu smiled and said, if it were a cultivator of the 14th realm, I might not be able to invite him. The implication is that, let alone an immortal, even a great cultivator of the Ascension realm must come to Tianmu Academy and make it clear to me, when you. Kong Kai said, judging from the evidence given by the Dragon Palace, it is not enough to convict Han Yushu of Wanyao sect. When you said, when I ask Han Yushu, there will be evidence. Kong Kai hurriedly glanced at Mr. Fan Shan. My dear, now I'm drinking tea with my head down. We both listened attentively and didn't see you raising a cup of tea. Kong Kai sighed, Lord Wen Shan, this seems to be against the rules. When you asked back, what is the rule of the Confucian Temple, which does not allow a vice president of the academy to invite a suzerain to the academy for tea? In this Tong Yezhou, the scholars of the academy will listen carefully when they reason with you. Fan Jiandan and Kong Kai looked at each other. The two old people were a little helpless. As for why when you insisted on having Han Yushu come to the academy in person, the two mountain chiefs naturally knew the reason. Wen Yu has his own means to check the truth. Just like when Yes, superfluous, trial today in the Dragon Palace, it's not a matter of passing scenes. It's just that the realm of the Dragon Palace is not enough, so she didn't realize it. In fact, the few of them are now in Wen Ye's small world. In Wen Ye's study, there used to be an authentic copybook, the content of which was taken from a poem. My house is small, outside the shadow of dragons and snakes, in the sound of wind and rain. Right now they are in this study. All words and thoughts will be recorded by Wen Yu one by one. In addition to being a gentleman of the Confucian Academy, Wen Yu was actually a swordsman. Previously, when Wang Zai visited Tianmu Academy, in Wen Ye's study, he turned to a page, and the seal was printed with a side book seal carved by Wen Yu himself. Wen Yu showed up today. In addition to the jade pendant of the gentleman at the waist, there is also a green bamboo tube, in which there is actually a black monkey as big as a fist. Born of some scripture in the book. One is the mountain of books and the other is the sea of ink. It should be known that Wen Yu has two natal flying swords at the same time, named 3K and in the sound of reading. The most important thing is that Wen Yu is not a sage in the Confucian Temple for the time being, but he already has a natal character. Walking out of the house, Wen Yu said goodbye and left first. Kong Kai said helplessly, young and vigorous. Tianmu Academy has such a strong deputy mountain leader on the booth, and he has no time to spare. Fan Jian smiled lightly, we came here too. The mountain chief stretched out his hand and patted Kong Kai's arm. Besides, it's true that we were all young once, but we, in those young years, except for studying, doing learning, in lecturing, barely making small achievements, it seems that there is nothing else worthwhile a place to say. Fan Jiandan's implication is that Wen Yu is arrogant, and he has his own reasons and confidence to be arrogant. The two of them are just older, their words are acceptable, and their merits are incomparable to Wen Yu. Old Kong, let me tell you the inside story, remember not to spread the word. In the Confucian Temple, there were two great academies offering wine, and they jointly recommended Wen Yu for an extraordinary promotion and directly served as the mountain leader of a certain academy, but Wen Yu himself refused, said his scholarship the only thing I can do is to be the deputy head of the academy. Of course, the Confucian Temple agreed. Later, Wen Yu chose our Tianmu Academy by himself. The Confucian Temple also asked him if he had a suitable candidate for the head of the mountain. Human partner. Kong Kai smiled and said, Good Wen Yu, is it because we don't have the temper to talk? After Fan Jiandan and Kong Kai separated, he hesitated for a while, but went to find Wen Yu. Fan Shanchang said softly, Wen Yu, not only do I not dislike your sharp-edgedness, but I will be very pleased. I sincerely feel that this is what a Confucian scholar should have, and I even envy you a little. Young people have to be young man zeal, but at the same time, I hope you must use your intellect properly. The great way will kill the sheep in many ways, and the scholars will die in many ways. Of course, this sentence is a bit heavy, don't think it's ugly. Wen Yu bowed his thanks and said solemnly, "Remember the master's teachings." Fan Shanchang smiled knowingly and nodded, but unfortunately Kong Lauer was not present, so he couldn't see the bow. After Wen Yu left, the old man stroked his beard and smiled. It was nice to be young. If you want to go on a spring tour with the young man, after all, it will not work, so why not? Qinghu Palace in Qingjing Mountain, a towering feathering platform. Old man Lu held the whisk in his hand and looked up at the golden sea of clouds outside the mountain. Standing beside old Yuaning was a young Taoist priest with a white jade chime hanging from his waist. He hesitated to speak, looked down at the sneakers on his feet, and swallowed the words back in his stomach, but when he looked up at the slightly tired master, the young Taoist couldn't hold back and whispered, "Master, this disciple knows your relationship with Shanju Qin best, but Shanju Qin always asks for medicine pills like this. In just a few years, he has already asked for it 3 times. The imperial alchemist of Luopao Mountain is now Qin Qin. The mountain master has another sect, and it is in our Tongya continent. If Qingping Sword's sect speaks again in the future, will he agree or not?" He was Lu Yong's proud disciple, none of them. His name was Zhao Zhu, and his Taoist name was Xianqiu. It was the apprentice that Lu Yong personally brought up the mountain. He was about to accept apprentices on behalf of his master back then, but the master was lazy by nature, and even a nominal apprentice was unwilling to accept it. The last time I sent a furnace of Yuhua pills to Pushan Yunkatang, it was this direct descendant, and Zhao Zhu was also a young Jin Dan who had the most hope of becoming the nascent soul in Qinghu Palace. Not to mention each pot of precious medicinal pills, there is only one, in the 2 continents of Tongyi and treasure vase on the mountain today. It is not a small favor. Lu Yong smiled and said, "Yes, why not?" Zhao Zhui gritted his teeth. If the master feels embarrassed, and is afraid of hurting his temper, let the disciple be the villain. Next time, I will decline the request of Qin Shanju or Qingping Sword sect. Lu Yong waved his whisk, turned his head, and smiled at the disciple with sincere words and firm eyes. "Then have you ever thought that I won't personally refuse, but just let you show up? The other party will only know it well, and it will hurt even more." Kindness. The old monk turned to look at the sea of clouds and smiled. In this complex world full of intrigues and lack of sincerity, we often don't care so much about being deceived by a smart person, but we will always be angry with ourselves. Being tricked by a fool for being a fool. Zhao Zhu thought for a while, then nodded and said, "It's the disciple who thought it simple." The old cultivator smiled and shook his head. "You're only half right, it's because your thinking is not simple enough." It turned out that the last time the Fengyuan ferry passed by the Qingjingshan ferry, that Shanju Qin was once again cheeky and biting his head, and ordered another pot of sitting forgetting pills with Qinghu Palace and Lu Lao Shinxian. It is said that it was an elixir for a friend of Zai Wufu, Dequan's new national teacher, Han Guanghu. Nowadays, there are as many people asking for pills from Qinghu Palace as Christian carp crossing the river. Lu Yong can only choose to agree to it, and he never promises the exact date of handing over the Yuhua pill to the forces. Yuguazang in the southernmost part of Tongya continent, Jindingguan in the north, Xiaolongqiu, Beilongdong, etc. If you go further north, Aquarius continent, there are not a few people who seek pills. Songmu, Tianjun Kizan's sect, as well as Fengshua Temple and Jinwu Mountain, the ancestral family of the 2 Beipingzu soldiers, the old Longqing Fu family, the Yunlin Zhang family, the Changchun Palace, and the Taoist Xianjun Chao Rong's family. Zhuolingfei View. At the foot of Tongyishao Mountain, most of the 10 dynasties newly selected are mostly I didn't forget the Qinghu Palace, or the emperor's royal pen to write, or else the national teacher and the protector of the country wrote on their behalf, all of which were ordered with Lu Yong for medicinal herbs, ranging from 300 years to 500 years. Don't even think about Lu Yong. Idle. Even so, when Chen Pingon opened his mouth to order the medicine pill, the old Lu did not hesitate, and agreed without hesitation, "What's the problem?" The furnace elixir, at that time, used a dragging tactic, so it was supposed to be given to De Quan Yao Shi in advance. Chen Pingan was ashamed and said, "Brother Liu, I will try my best to ensure that there are no more than 3 things. Once he asked for it himself, once he helped Pushan Yunkatang, and this time he asked Han Guanghu to ask for it." Lu Yong said with a hearty smile, "There are too many good things. Brother Chin, don't be polite to me. The family doesn't talk to each other." He gave a long list and asked Fengyuan Ferry, which passed through the land of 3 continents, to help buy the necessary items. Chen Pingan said it at the time. "Really, don't make money, don't lose money." But Chen Pingan was still unhappy. Before going down the mountain, he gave out a long-cherished no-thing card with the number 8 in seal. Lu Yong didn't have any hypocrisy and accepted it on the spot. In fact, Chen Pingan, Qinghu Palace and Lu Yong are indeed very closely related. You must know that Chen Pingan's first treasure of refining is the multicolored gold kitchen stove bought with 50-grain rain money. Only after that can you successfully refine a 5-element natal object on top of the old Dragon City's Sea of Clouds and Fan Junmao's guardian. Fan Junmao speaks directly, "You are not buying it, you are picking it up." Zhao Zhu, finally, I will teach you 2 secrets of life. Keep it firmly in mind and try to figure it out, it will benefit you for life. The disciple would like to hear the details. In dealing with people, you need to be careful with smart people, otherwise he won't deceive you. At the same time, you need to treat people with sincerity with smart people. Remember that if you are stupid, you are smart. Zhao Zhu silently remembered this experience, and then waited for the next paragraph, but the master fell silent. Zhao Zhu opened his mouth in doubt and said, "Master, is there a warning in life left?" Lu Yong stroked his beard and said with a smile, "That is to hold one thigh tightly and not let go." Zhao looked embarrassed. Lu Yong stretched out his hand and patted the disciple's shoulder. "You are still very tender, now you are thin-skinned, and you will get better in the future." If it is not a direct disciple, how could the old master orally teach such secret cultivation secrets that are not for sale? Zhao Zhu became more and more embarrassed. The old Yuaning lifted the whisk and waved it gently to break up the sea of clouds, and then pointed at 2 places with a whisk, 1 mountain and 1 water, and then performed supernatural powers to remove the blinding method that blocked the scenery of the mountains and rivers. See? Do you think that Mr. Qin just spent some manpower and material resources to help rebuild the Qinghu Palace and buy those fairy woods and various utensils? That's what we call a true ritual exchange. Lu Yong sighed with emotion, "Good disciple, you need to know that Qingjing Mountain is a treasure land of feng shui, and its special place is not the abundance of spiritual energy in heaven and earth, but the rich spiritual energy. Which sect does not have it? How can Guizhong, Tongyezong, and Qinghu Palace in Qingjing Mountain be comparable to these big sects? However, in the entire Tongya continent, only our Qingjing Mountains, who have received the grace left by the ancient gods, can accumulate merits, incense, and martial arts in the spiritual energy. And the strange thing is that the big cultivator can't take it away, so he can't linger here, and Yun Zhenya's feet are like rooting. Otherwise, with the behavior of Tong Yezong Du Mao, I would have long ago asked me to hand over that patriarch. The handed-down secret of alchemy, let me make a bid, he came to pay for it. It can be said that Du Mao has a big appetite and wants to bring his own formulas together, and together with Qinghu Palace, he will become a vassal of Tong Yezong. What's more, Du Mao, it's nothing, in fact, the great cultivator that master is really afraid of is from Jade Guizhong. Speaking of which, whether it was taboo for the venerable or the deceased, Lu Yong did not continue to talk about how sacred the Jade Guizhong was to make this old Yuaning so jealous. If it wasn't for Lu Yong who wanted to make a few more pots of pills in one go, even the old immortal who was the mountain owner would not be able to discover the very mysterious, flowing water here. So if we really want to talk about money, in fact, King Jingshan makes money, and the more you go, the greater the profit. The old man just changed his words. After all, the medicinal herbs that master gave to Taiping Mountain for free in his early years were not free. After all, there is that old heavenly lord, and in Tongya continent, no one dares to arbitrarily bully our Qinghu palace. Mentioning the Taiping Mountain where only one person was left after the sect was destroyed, the old man sighed heavily, his expression full of sadness. A continent with mountains and rivers, whether or not there is a Taiping Mountain, is really different. I only hope that the current Taiping Mountain Huangting can really successfully rebuild the sect, and when the branches and leaves are scattered in the future, they can truly inherit the style of the Taiping Mountain cultivator. Not only is the character strong, but also the Taoism is profound. Although the Taoism is cultivated in the mountains, the immortals have a chivalrous spirit. Lu Yong turned his head and stared. Are you still wearing the sneakers that Mr. Xiao Mo gave? Zhao Zhi smiled and said, wear your shoes with your feet, but not your face. Lu Yong sighed and praised, I have made progress. I was worried that you would not be acclimatized before, so I can feel relieved. Zhao Zhu was confused. Lu Yong smiled and said, my teacher intends to help you find a famous guest in Luopao Mountain, and one who has a position in Jiasfang Patriarch's Hall. Zhao Zhu asked, why didn't the master ask for this identity himself? Lu Yong scolded with a smile, aren't you an elm lump? Zhao thought about it for a while, and soon wanted to understand the joints. Where does master need such a icing on the cake? Only the disciples of Qinghu Palace need it. The sunset is white, and the tide is blue. This Wanli Rin River, which is connected to the sea, Wu Yi sniffed, squinted and smiled. It is indeed a land of prosperity. It is impossible to go wrong here. As the eldest daughter of Lao Jiao Qinglongzhou, her Taoist name is Dongling, and she is in the nascent soul realm. She is of the genus of the extremely pure flood dragon, the Tao is hydrophilic, and may be more able to examine the distribution and circulation of the water veins than the Qi Shi, and accurately distinguish the severity of the water from the turbidity. However, if she wants to walk in the future, this Rin River is still not enough to look at. First, the water flow of the Rin River is too gentle, which is not in line with her natural temperament, and secondly, the water transport is not strong enough to support a nascent soul realm water dragon. Jiangjing Dao. So if it wasn't for Tong Yezhou about to dig Dadu, Wu Yi would definitely not come here to settle down. Before Wu Yi traveled across the continent to Tongya continent, he congratulated his father and emptied half of the Xiang Palace treasury. Although his father Qinglongzhou is now the head of the Dafu Academy, the family law still exists. Wu Yi and his younger brother, who is the water of Hanxijiang, are no accident. They are two brothers and sisters, and they are destined to live in the shadow of their father in this life. When she returned to the Xiang mansion of Huangtinghua, she emptied the remaining half of the treasury, and then asked the mansion master Huang Chu to bring a genealogy. See border monk, more the cultivators of the lower 5 realms with better qualifications followed her southward and established a new portal in Tongya continent. In Wu Yi's eyes, those old monks with high realms had mistakes in their practice, and their skins and souls were almost dead wood. Instead, they were those young Qi practitioners in the lower 5 realms who didn't sculpt much. She still had a chance to correct them and walk on the right track. Then this group of Qi practitioners followed the founder of Dongling, went south to Tongya continent, started anew, and drew a clear line with Xiang Mansion, and was about to re-establish a mansion in a foreign land. For these Qi practitioners, it is actually more joy than worry. When a new school is established, a new genealogy will be drawn up. It is said that a small number of lucky people can be directly promoted to the direct disciples of the ancestors of Dongling. If there is no seat in the hall, there is also a chance to have a top spot in the new martial art. After all, having a seat is equivalent to an extra salary of money, which is the most tangible benefit. The mighty, more than 80 chi practitioners, followed the ancestors from their hometowns, rushed to the middle of Tongya continent, and stopped on the banks of the Rin River. It was a veritable self-made man. This has to be left elsewhere in Tongya continent. A cultivator in the nascent Soul realm leads the mountain sect with nearly 100 cultivators, and it directly ranks among the top Zongmen. For some unknown reason, after Wu Yi entered the nascent Soul realm, he would always think of the wandering Taoist priest in yellow shirt and linen shoes with a sword on his back. It was also the first time Wu Yi saw his arrogant father, who paid such respect to a human race practitioner, but unfortunately he didn't know the name of the other party, and his father was even more reluctant to talk to her. He just said some prophecies like a riddle, one of which is, with a finite body, refine the endless fire academy. If it weren't for Xiao Wan, the water of Baihu River, who is a close neighbor on the mountain, it was this Taoist priest who threw a wine glass and transformed into a canna. Wu Yi is really not used to her. It was suggested that Wu Yi come to assist the Duge clan of the old Zhuang dynasty in Baya Pingzu to establish a country on the banks of the Rin River. Chen Pingon personally served as the matchmaker. At that time, Wu Yi said that the matter was important and needed to be considered carefully. In fact, it is just a scene. Considering the consideration of a fart, Wang Tinghua, who is like a small place and difficult to use his hands and feet, will be a real protector of the country if he dies. In the landscape and officialdom, she needs to look at a lot of things. Do you want to abide by the rules of the Dali court? Wei Bo, the king of Beiyue Mountain who held a night banquet when he had nothing to do, was a fuel-efficient lamp. Another night feast, how to do? And the younger brother who is the water of Hanshi Jiang, and her sister, have always had a superficial relationship. Of course, it's not that the family doesn't enter the house, and Wu Yi doesn't think that he will be better. As for the Xiang mansion, it is estimated that Huang Chu is rolling around with joy now. Finally, he became the real palace master of Xiang Palace. He had no founders on his head, and he didn't have to worry about following in the footsteps of the palace masters of the previous generations. At this moment, there are several earth snakes beside Wu Yi, His Royal Highness the Prince of the old Zhuang dynasty under the pseudonym Xiao Poxian, a swordsman in the Yuan Jing realm. Duge Menglong, the future queen of that small country. There is also a young female cultivator named Shi Qiu, who is not even in the state of the cave, and can be ignored. Wu Yi didn't even know what Xiao Poxian did with such a tow oil bottle. Even if it was used as a vase, he wouldn't find a better-looking one. Wu Yi glanced at Xiao Poxian with a playful expression. They are all hard-working people, no wonder they gathered together. The old Zhuang dynasty, which used to be king and hegemony in the central Aquarius continent, was really unlucky, and encountered a Dali dynasty that could occupy a continent. Otherwise, Xiao Poxian, the former crown prince, is destined to be unable to inherit the Duge clan because of his mountaineering cultivation and sword training skills, and he can still be a more free and easy mountain monarch than the emperor under the mountain. Zhang Long chairs take turns, and Xiao Poxian is always an ancestor. As for Wu Yi himself, giving away an ancient sword pill in exchange for the position of a small country protecting the country is not a big loss. What's more, didn't the big dynasties come from small countries? The mountain spirit and water monster of the genus Jiaolong, the level of cultivation realm, the most important thing is the quality of one's background. At this point, Wu Yi has a very innate advantage. She belongs to the natural water Jiao, and there is no need for the extremely dangerous link of the aquarium to go to the river to turn into a Jiao. If I use a metaphor, Wu Yi was born in the emperor's family as soon as he was reborn. The problem is that Jiao, who has been involved in the world too deeply, has both advantages and disadvantages. It is only said that according to the history of Hauran countries, the fate of a country under the mountain has the law of 300 years for a small calamity, and 800 years for a great calamity. A country has 300 years of continuous kingdom, which is not too short, and definitely not a short-lived dynasty, but for Jiaolong, who was born with longevity, a short 300 years is nothing long, and this is also a 10,000 years old. Jiao's father Qinglongzhou, plus old money-pawned chief Chao Yong, why are they unwilling to leave the dojo so easily to assist the king of the world? Once it is too deeply involved with a certain country's luck, it is easy to suffer a catastrophe. Therefore, even if Daoxing is as profound as Qinglongzhou, he has only served as a servant of the Ministry of Rites in Huangtinghua. Generally, only the descendants of the flood dragon who cannot form elixir will take risks, and they all like to choose a new court that has not been established for a long time. Anyway, the farther away from the 300-year limit, the better. Xiaopoxian smiled and said, "Our Majesty will help fellow Taoist Dongling in exchange for a place in Dadu to walk the water." Wu Yi twitched the corners of his mouth. This kind of verbal promise, it's very easy to say a few nice words. Xiaopoxian said, "As long as Taoist Dongling is willing to contribute, I can ask Sect Master Cui for a definite answer regarding this default quota." Wu Yi asked, "Didn't you go directly to Qinpingan?" Xiaopoxian said with a smile, "For the next sect on Tong Yeshe's side, Master Qin Shan has made up his mind to be the boss, so it is enough to find Sect Master Cui." Wu Yi was non-committal. Xiaopoxian asked, "Daoist Dongling, have you ever thought of the name of the new sect?" Wu Yi's eyes shone brightly, and he said solemnly, "First call it Chunyang Mansion, and when I enter the Jade Pure Realm, it should be Chunyang Sect." Sunny day. A Confucian scholar in green shirt with slightly frosted temples, but holding an oil paper umbrella, climbed a mountain road gradually. Next to him was a Yi Xiao who was born in the snow-capped continent. His Taoist name was Qingmi and his real name was Feng Shuetao. He was wearing a python suit with a white belt and a mace hanging from his waist. He was accustomed to being a family from all over the world, not establishing sects, and not accepting disciples. The so-called friends on the mountain are also friends who are well known to both sides. His thunder law is in a line of its own. The scholar twirled the oil paper umbrella in his hand and smiled, "Brother Feng, I really don't regret it. Not only did we serve as the enshrinement of our Jiang clan's Cloud Cave Blessed Land, but he is also willing to be the chief guest of Jade Guizhong. Don't be reluctant." Feng Shuetao said with a smile, "I can save a life without even falling, so I have nothing to be satisfied with, not to mention these two identities, even if I serve someone as a personal squire, and keep the Tao in secret for hundreds of years, it doesn't count. Nothing willingly. I am ashamed to say that he has the highest realm and the least effort." Many times, Feng Shuetao, a dignified Ascension realm cultivator and a wild cultivator, is completely unable to get involved. It was only in the later stage, when they became familiar with each other, that Feng Shuetao helped a little. There is a pavilion on the top of the mountain, named Dikui, and a plaque is hung, "Heaven is excellent." It is located on the steep mountain peak of Longwei. According to legend, the Lord of the Dragon Palace of Dadu once stayed here. Jiang Shengzhen stretched out his hand against his temples, and sighed, "Rich, honor, fame, wealth are a dream of spring. Those who cannot live forever will be like a mayfly in this life." Feng Shuetao said with a smile, "Brother Jiang's cultivation qualifications are so good, there is no suspense in the future." Jiang Shengzhen was unable to enter Jiui Peak, which was regarded as the hidden residence of Yuguizhong. At that time, Jiang Shengzhen was eloquent, claiming to be the direct disciple of the secret of the youth of the Middle-earth divine continent. After going back and forth, many fairies with genealogy on the mountain were all stunned by Jiang Shengzhen. So much so that every time Master Huolong traveled to the divine continent of the Middle-earth, he would go to Feng Shuatao to reminisce when he was busy with his business, saying that you had accepted a good apprentice and made a big name in our Beiju Luzhou. That's why in the wild world, the self-proclaimed title of a broken true monarch would have such a sentence: the younger generation is too late to rescue, and the crime deserves death. Feng Shuatao asked curiously, fellow Daoist Jiang, who are we going to meet at the top of the mountain? Jiang Shangjin said with a smile, I'm a good friend. I was able to serve as the chief worshipper of Luopa Mountain. This gentleman has contributed a lot. In an instant, the top of the mountain was filled with clouds and mist, and Feng Shuatao narrowed his eyes. In the end, what kind of friend is Jiang Shangjin, the way of hospitality, so mysterious? I saw a young man in white jumping out of the pavilion on the top of the mountain. He raised his two arms and leaned high. On the side of the road, there was a beautiful woman yingying yen yen, or playing the qin, flute, and pipa. The boy in white jumped forward again, stretch your arms in another direction, and there will be fairies such as blowing the jade flute, playing the kong ho, ringing the chime and jade chime. Although Feng Shuatao didn't know the identity of the other party for the time being, he was absolutely certain that the other party was definitely Jiang Shangzhen's friend, and he was a very good friend on the mountain. A normal person would definitely not be able to play this kind of pomp. Jiang Shangjin walked quickly, high-fives the boy in white, touches his elbows, twists his body, swaps positions, repeats it again, and finally shakes hands, all in one go. Chief Zhou. If you don't come back, I will endure the grief in my heart, and prepare a suona for you. Jiang Shangjin said stiffly, I really don't need it. Cui Dongshan whispered, have you received the letter? Jiang Shangjin nodded and said, I got it, I know, there is a very popular Mr. Mo in the mountains. Cui Dongshan said sadly, they like the new and hate the old, they change their minds, one by one, and now they all turn to Mr. Mo. Stop the capital. I can't stop it, brother. With reason and emotion, he repeatedly said that Chief Zhou was good, but it was useless to persuade him. The boy in white beat his heart hard, my heart hurts. Jiang Shangjin rubbed his chin, another battle of the great Tao. I don't know if there is a chance this time. Cui Dongshan asked, who is this? Jiang Shangjin said with a smile, it's a friend of mine who I have admired for a long time. The senior on the mountain on the other side of the capital, the Taoist name is Qingmi, you must have heard of it. Cui Dongshan was full of admiration, oh. You are the one. It's a pity that I arrived at Parrot Island, but I couldn't participate in the discussion in the Confucian Temple. My uncles would chased and chopped him all the way, but he couldn't kill that Lei Fa senior who was not inferior to the secret senior of Tianchi Mansion in Longhu Mountain. Feng Shuatao looked embarrassed. Chatting as soon as we meet. Do you think you are that Gu Qingsong? However, in the words of the boy in white, the words Master's Wa were enough to make Feng Shuatao shut up. Cui Dongshan said angrily, Gu Qingsong, this old boy can be considered a fart, compared to my family's Luo Pao Mountain Xiaolong King Chen Ling Jun, and an old friend named Lu Cao, he is far worse. Feng Zuido's heartstrings were instantly tense. Jiang Shangjin smiled and said, Brother Feng, just get used to it. Cui Dongshan removed the pomp and went into the pavilion and sat down together. Cui Dongshan asked a question without thinking, now Jiang Shangjin doesn't look like Jiang Shangjin at all, don't you feel regret? Jiang Shangjin didn't seem to be surprised, smiled and said, to be honest, more or less, I am indeed a little unwilling. Cui Dongshan nodded, our chief Zhou still treats people with sincerity, good brother. Jiang Shangjin smiled and said, it's nothing, life doesn't seek perfection, there are occasional fly in the ointment, the moon is not full and the flowers are half blooming, isn't it very good? Cui Dongshan slapped his fist with a fist, listening to Jun Chengxin's words, I really feel Ping Ping curled up. Jiang Shangjin sat on the railing, and Cui Dongshan followed his example and looked into the distance together. Feng Shuatao sat near the steps and did not disturb the two people's reminiscences. Sort of Coming Chapter 1048. Xiago had to fight for Chenpin Gon. Why is Wei Bo not being stubborn today? On our mountain master's side, he was strong and strong. When he saw this group of scholars with some background, he saw that the wind turned the rudder, and it was obvious that his elbow was turned out. Piyun Mountain and Luopao Mountain are close neighbors a few steps away. The Beiyue Mountain Juanfu is a little bit troubled, and he can hide it from others, but Xiego who goes there when he has nothing to do, so Wei Bo made up his own name, Ling. Xiego knew about Zhe, and she also knew that Chen Pingon had persuaded Wei Bo, but she could not persuade him. Xiao Mo smiled and said, "When I meet someone I admire from the bottom of my heart, everything will be easy to talk about, and those who commit stubbornness again won't go to the horns." I remember Zhu Lian said that there are only 3 possibilities for a person to listen to persuasion. Either he encounters words that he considers to be a strong person or a noble person. Or through personal experience, encountered some things, went through detours and suffered hardships, and felt that some of my habits and certain truths could not be changed. Then there is the book. The former has to take a chance, the latter depends on fate and wisdom, so it is more of the second situation, which makes people have to think more. Xiago said with a smile, "There won't be dozens of people who Wei Shanjun sincerely admires, right?" Xiao Mo said in a heartfelt voice, "It's not that exaggerated, it's probably only a handful. I have heard Mr. Zhu talk about the general life of Wei Shanjun. There are many stories. He was born in the hairpin family. The Wei family has the reputation of living in the Yishui 600 springs. Wei Bo himself became a high-ranking official during his lifetime, and without relying on the shadow of his ancestors, he entered the official career through the official shortcut of the imperial examination, official paper, but won the championship with the fierce competition, which is not a fierce, people's paper, and is Lianzhong Sanyuan, step by step into the center of the temple, and finally the posthumous Wenjin, posthumously awarded the Prince Taibao, after Wei Bo's death became a heroic spirit who sheltered one side, was sealed by the imperial court, and finally made the official position, into the ancient Shu land realm Shinshui Kingdom the first statue of Shanjun. In terms of self-cultivation and self-cultivation, Wei Bo most admires the great master of the Confucian Temple, on academic articles, worships Mr. Long Axian in his poems, on the way of life, respects the swordsman A Liang who was born in the Yashing mansion, and on the art of war and martial arts. Xia is a killing whose status in the martial temple has dropped again and again, but to be versatile and all-rounder, he has to be the noble son of the lotus flower blessed land close at hand. Zhu Lian. Xiago said with his heart, "The mountain owner is so big, and it seems that he doesn't treat guests with his true self today, isn't it right? Scholars can hold grudges, and they can't bear to show off their peers." Xiaomo explained, it was the time when the school started, so Mr. De had already informed the son at the foot of the mountain that he didn't have to ask for leave specifically to welcome them. Compared with hospitality, it was more important to teach the class, so Mr. De didn't embarrass the son. Mr. Zhu Jing also joked at the time that as a teacher who opened the library and taught, there can be no such thing as asking for leave for the first time. Xiago nodded, if they are all such scholars, it would be difficult to think that the world is not peaceful. She suddenly whimpered and asked, "Little Mo, why is it that you can hear Daolin and Liu's thoughts, but I can't even hear a word?" The burly man with the tall crown and the iron sword raised his head to look at the young girl's sword Xiu Bai Jing. Xiago knew it in his heart, and his teeth were itching with anger, and he held the sable hat. She raised one arm and made a provocative gesture of slapping the arm with the palm of her hand. "Didn't you ask the sword once and couldn't tell the winner? Is it so mad?" Xiao Mo said with a smile, "You're not called Wen Jian." A huge rainstorm of sword energy was pouring down on the motorcade of the Supreme Sage. As a result, you took your sword and ran away. Can Zhogua not be angry? Xiago pouted, "If you can catch up with me, you can ask the sword." Xiao Mo had a dark face. Xiago immediately realized that he had said something wrong, and brought up some sad things in Xiao Mo that could not be recalled. She, the chief culprit, hurriedly admitted his mistake and said, "This kind of sneak attack is not very authentic and shameful, and it has to be changed. It will definitely change in the future." The group slowly climbed the mountain, and Li Ho took the lead to ask, "Master Qin, Luopao Mountain is the first sect, and now the cultivator of the genealogy plus the pure martial artist, does the number exceed 100? Chen Pingan shook his head and said, "The number has never exceeded 100, even if you add the named guest ministers who are recorded in the genealogy of the Ji Sifeng Patriarch's Hall, to be precise, it is actually less than half 100. I believe that the addition of members will still be relatively limited." Li Ho said with a smile, "It's really not easy to make such a big deal with so many people." Chen Pingan said ashamed, "Bu Gilliman, laughing and generous." Min Wen said with a smile, "100 swords immortal seals and Xianjin immortal seals, each of which Zhu Jing has treasured in private, thinks that the rare goods are livable and worth waiting for a price." Li Ho said, "They were all bought by friends on the mountain. Does Master Chen have a spare stamp?" "Of course, it must be the first edition of the Yinjia shop on the Great Wall of Sword Qi." Chen Pingan said helplessly, "I only kept 2 copies myself. If I had known it was so valuable, in the temporary bookstore set up by the Yen family back then, the artisans and engravers would not want to rest, and if they didn't bring back tens of thousands of copies, it would be considered incompetent as a burden room by Qin Shanju." Li Ho said regretfully, "It's a pity that it's a stamp, and there's no such thing as an engraving. If there are engraving blocks, let alone hundreds or thousands of copies, how difficult is it to have millions of copies?" Zhou finally opened his mouth and said, "I have turned over 2 seals, the seals related to the customs of the Great Wall of Sword Qi, and the seals tailored for those local sword cultivators, whether they are seals or side models. These 2 Yin slew, the content is very good, it is really good, but other than this, it is purely patchwork and patchwork, because it is difficult to be too high in the eyes of real scholars and everyone." Evaluation of. The implication is that fame is greater than content. In the final analysis, Yinpu relies not only on the Great Wall of Sword Qi, but also on the title of the last hidden official to have the reputation and popularity of the world today. Zhou said indifferently, "These should have been said by Xiangji, but he recognizes you more as a person, and he probably won't say it directly, so I have to be the villain." Min Wen smiled and nodded, "Since I have selfishness, I naturally don't want to blame Qin Shanju." Chen Pingan smiled and said, "The former sages have already explained the crux of the problem with poems." After pausing for a moment, Chen Pingan continued, "Yu Zhishue, I have never been to a school, and I have not studied Tongzigong at home. Later, I have been traveling abroad, and I dare not slack off in martial arts and swordsmanship. Too many, I don't dare to say entering the room. Fortunately, the sword cultivators on the side of the Great Wall of Sword Qi don't pay much attention to this. As long as the sales on the Great Wall of Sword Qi are good, people can buy it with money, and a few words on the wine table are enough. As for the good or bad reputation of Yinpu in Haoran world, it has nothing to do with me." Because the climbing group did not use the means of heartfelt words to talk, so the people sitting in a row like sparrows on the high mountain road steps could hear the chatter on the road. Wei Wenlong, the god of wealth in Luopa Mountain, who finally heard the news, blushed and muttered to himself repeatedly, "It was really Mr. Zhu Jing, it was really Mr. Zhu Jing." Zhang Jiazhen, who is also the accountant, is probably because his hometown is not the world, but he is fine. am afraid it is a mountain of desolation. At this moment, I don't know the clever ghost, who is a scholar. There is only Chen Lingjun, who believes that, if you are a little stupid, you will be beaten to death by a punch. Having said that, Daoist Jingqing has indeed seen strong winds and waves. After all, he has seen the patriarchs of the three sects in Huaihuang County before. Has there been a place where hospitality is not at all good? Chen Qinglu smiled and said, "That's right, it'll be soft-spoken. There is a needle hidden in the cotton, and the book is not read in vain." As an ordinary scholar, facing the sages and sages who walked out of the statues in the Confucian temple, it is not easy to be able to speak without trembling and without knotting the tongue. Nuanshu was a little nervous, and subconsciously stretched out her hand to tighten her skirt. She was no better than Chen Lingjun, a guy who might have only set foot in the Confucian temple once or twice in her life. She recognized the true identity of the scholars at first sight. Don't be nervous, this is called sages and sages, and everyone agrees first and then disagrees. Zhu Lian smiled comfortingly and said, when talking about the scholars in the world, they should sit upright and be consistent in their words and deeds. We mountain masters can count as one, so what are we afraid of? Chen Qinglu said, I heard that you are proficient in 18 martial arts, old cook, and your stick skills must be higher than swordsmanship and marksmanship. The stick sweeps a large piece. Zhu Lian's swipe of the beard not only touted his own mountain master, but also said good things about the two most sage masters and disciples. Zhu Lian leaned forward, clasped his fists with the dragon slayer, and said something like his own son, Bu Gulei Men, laugh at you. Chen Qinglu asked with his heart, there are only 4 sages here to accompany the sages, and the 5 mountains of Aquarius continent are enshrined. 5 people are needed. Who else is not present today? Xan Jian said, I don't know very well either. Unsurprisingly, it is reasonable to say that it was the ceremony of the abbot of the state of Zhou, Beiyue Piyun Mountain. Mr. Dao Lin was responsible for the title of Zhongyue and the promulgation of the divine title. After all, according to the ritual system of the Confucian temple, the status of Zhongyue was higher than that of the other 4 mountains. On the front line, of course, it is also possible for the 2 sides to exchange. The key depends on the thickness of Wei Shanjin's face, or whether Qin Shanzhu is willing to mediate and help Wei Bo persuade Mr. De to stay in Piyun Mountain. Chen Qinglu said, I believe Li Ho and Chen Pingan will be able to chat in private. First of all, both of them are well-meaning accountants, and the 2 of them spare no effort in respecting and maintaining their respective husbands. Qi trainers who practice mountain climbing must understand the true meaning of this place better than ordinary masters. But children all know that they love their relatives, and their elders all know to respect their brothers. I don't agree with this point of view. Yaxing ignores the acquired imprint of family, clan, and local customs on people, and ignores one humans have an innate instinct to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages. There is only one sentence, in my opinion, it is Yisheng's profound intentions, the only one sentence from the gods on the mountain, that is, the heart is the same. Hearing this, the cotton-robed scholar smiled, but Qin Pingan was not allowed to continue speaking. Stop here. The big gentleman was neither right nor wrong. Chen Qinglu stood up, and for some reason, he suddenly missed that big and silly senior sister Xia. Among her several disciples, senior sister Xia prefers Lu Daochen, who is the least intelligent, and she has nothing to talk about with Jing Juzhong. The eye-catching pink Taoist robe seemed to be a gift from senior sister Xia to Lu Daochen, and she also gave him a Lioli pavilion as a dojo. Perhaps there is such a relationship. Chen Qinglu is a little bit biased towards the little disciple who is now called Lu Qiqing. Lu Qiqing is only a young disciple, and Chen Qinglu has not actually received close disciples, but Lu Qiqing has always regarded himself as a close disciple of his own master. Close the door. You call it blocking the door. Chen Qinglu sighed softly. There are many flowers and trees in this mountain, but some peach trees are missing, but in the small town Taoya Lane, the peach blossoms are dark red and light red, not lonely. If I were the Qing emperor in his year, I would be rewarded with the peach blossoms. Previously, Chen Qinglu helped him to ask for 2 copybooks, and Xan Jian intercepted the content of an old lyric titled Shuidiao Geru for the one reserved for Luo Pashan. The guest has not been here for a long time, and the good times are reserved for you. A bright moon will be awakened, and I will be full of ice and snow, and the mighty rivers will flow. Unconsciously, at this moment in the mountains of Luo. Only in the Ascension Realm and the monks above the Ascension Realm, there are 14 realm sword cultivators, the Dragon Slayer, Chen Qinglu. Xan Jian. Xiao Mo, by Jing. Luo Pao Mountains genealogy official, the white-haired boy who now goes by the pseudonym Kong Ho, is a supernatural demon. The Taoist neighbors, Zhou Gua, Min Wen, and Li Ho, were among the 10 philosophers in the Confucian Temple. If you add an old cultivator of Lixiazu Ascension Realm who didn't dare to take the lead, Jinghao, whose Taoist name is Qinggong Tai Bao. There are hands. Well, as the host of this mountain, the Mountain Master is a nascent soul realm. In the capital of Yunyan Kingdom, Qingtong and Yangji separated and continued to walk the streets and alleys by themselves, aimlessly. Suddenly, at the corner of a relatively secluded alley, I saw a boy in white, with his back against the wall, holding a colorful origami windmill in his hand. To tell the truth, Qingtong would rather deal with Chen Yingguan than meet this person. Cui Dongshan walked quickly towards Qingtong, the colored windmill slowly revolved, and said with an attentive expression, "I'm so happy to see Qingtong's second seat outside the mountain." The chief guest of Qingping Sword sect is Pushun Yi Yunyun, and the second enshrined is the Qingtong in front of him. The gentleman once openly and honestly gave Qingtong Daoyu a very high evaluation. It is the 4th invisible mountain of Qingping Sword sect. So I personally invited him to serve as a hidden Taoist guardian for the next sect. Chen Pingan also promised to pull his husband and say a few fair words for Qingtong at the Confucian Temple. Let's see if we can choose a feng shui treasure place near Zanyala, start a sect, and strive to attract some innocent Tonggishao local demon monks, become genealogy monks, and let Qing Tonghao be the first generation of ancestors. At the Mi Xiefeng side, Qing Tong did not dare to say anything big, saying that he only dared to promise that he would do his best and not make any other promises. Chen Pingan seemed to be waiting for his words, and the 2 sides agreed on this. Qing Tong squeezed out a smile. "I have seen Sect Master Cui." Cui Dongshan nodded vigorously and said, "It is an unexpected joy to meet an old friend in a foreign country." Qingtong did not say that he encountered Yangji at the barbecue stall. Cui Dongshan just pretended not to know. Qingtong asked, "Sect Master Cui appeared in the capital this time. Is he going to personally preside over the excavation of Dadu?" Cui Dongshan shook his head like a rattle. No, with Master Zhong, junior brother Chao, and immortal Mi Daijian here, I can rest assured to be an idle shopkeeper. Qingtong wouldn't say the words of those courteous greetings, and the atmosphere was a bit dull for a while. Cui Dongshan said, "I happened to meet the second seat of worship this time. Just in time, I told the senior about an important matter of our sect. Let's go and talk to the Tongyin Fairy." Qingtong was a veritable second-ranking worshipper, but he couldn't get away, so he had to follow Cui Dongshan on foot to Yulindu outside the capital. If I had known this earlier, I might as well have patiently accompanied Yang Ji and that Xiaohepi to eat skewers. Cui Dongshan said casually, "Have you chosen the address of the sect for the second seat of Qingtong?" Qingtong said, "Not yet, anyway, don't worry. In fact, there are a few favorite sites, but they don't want to chat with this sect Master Cui." It is better to talk to Chen Pingan about things and do business, and feel more at ease. Qin Tong always felt that Cui Dongshan, with the appearance of the boy in white, was the kind of person who had no taboos. It may only be on the side of Chen Pingan, who is his husband, that he will restrain himself a little, like a normal person. Cui Dongshan raised his arm high, shook it gently, the colored windmill kept spinning, and said with a smile, "Well, I originally thought that you had a suitable location for your mind, and it just so happened that I recently had the next sect of Qingping Sword Sect. Site selection, double happiness is coming." Qin Tong mistakenly thought that he had heard it wrong, next sect. Qingping Sword Sect has only been the next sect of Luo Pao Mountain for a few days, and you, Cui Dongshan, are thinking of owning your own sect? Indeed, Cui Dongshan did not deceive Qin Tong, and was already thinking about how to plan and build the next sect belonging to the Qingping Sword Sect. And it is not the established sect in the colorful world, just because there is a law issued by the Confucian Temple recently. The foundation of Qi practitioners in the colorful world has nothing to do with Haoran world. Sect Master Cui was aggressive, sent a letter to the Book of Rites Academy, and asked Mao Sai, who was the guy in the Confucian Temple who was full and supported. As a result, Mao Sai's reply was one word, me. Cui Dongshan had no choice but to settle for the next best thing. The tentative location was in the middle of Tonggishao, at the mouth of the Lianhe River, so there was no need for a tit-for-tat confrontation with Yu Guizhong, who had just formed an alliance for a while. As for the Rin River, Qingping Jianzong will officially break ground soon to build a Xianjia ferry. The name has already been chosen, it is called Mengxiadu. There, on the north and south sides of the strait, two small countries will soon appear. One is the female emperor Duge Menglong, the chief worshipper Xiao Poxian, and the protector of the country Wu Yi. The other side is Yulu, thank you. Cui Dongshan is more than spending a lot of money, paying out of his own pocket to buy, and buy. In addition to the 3 hilltops in the sect, there is also the Yayandu that originally belonged to Lingbai Mountain, the top of the mountain of the Beilongdong vassal, but now belongs to the Qingping Sword Sect's private person. The ferry is over, and Cui Dongshan bought it for 100 grain reins. In addition, Cui Dongshan also has a great plan, preparing to relocate more old mountains and Xianfu dojo sites in Tonggishao countries in one go, and put them in the surrounding area of the old 3 mountains. Zongmin has purchased many enclaves, which are scattered on the hilltops of vassalages all over Tonggishao. One day, they will form a line with points and faces. In terms of the size of the site, they will be able to wrestle with Yu Guizhong. You have a cloud cave blessed land, don't I also have a Chongqun cave? What's more, Yun cave blessed land is Chief Zhou's, doesn't it mean it's his own? It's just that the Confucian Temple also gave Yu Guizhong an extra blessed land according to his merits, and Cui Dongshan made his idea to the Sanshan blessed land of Wanyaozong. Of course, the difficulty is a bit bigger, just take your time. When they arrived at the bustling fish-scale ferry, Cui Dongshan took Qin Tong to board the Tongyin ferry. Qin Tong found that apart from Mi Yu and Chong Qiu, they were all there. There were a lot of people sitting in the same room. With such a mobilization, it seemed that the matter of discussion tonight was really not a trivial matter. Cui Dongshan patted his head. I forgot to invite a senior on the mountain to attend the discussion. You wait a moment, I will come when I go. Cui Dongshan shrank the mountains and rivers and returned to the capital of Yunyan Kingdom. Daoist Nen and Situ Mengjing, the master of Xialongqiu Mountain with the Taoist name Longbeard, had no sleepiness after drinking a meal, and the mountain refining technique had reached a bottleneck, so they sat on the roof alone to enjoy the night view. Such a small capital city the size of a palm could be well preserved during the war that swept across the continent. Is there really some protection from ghosts and gods? On the street outside the mansion, there was a young man in white waving the colorful windmill in his hand vigorously. Master Nin, this way. Daoist Nin asked suspiciously, "Who are you, fellow Daoist? It's rare to meet a Qi practitioner who can't see the depth of Taoism." "Im Dongshan." The boy in white laughed and said, "My own family. Li Huai and I are brothers from the same school." Nin Daoist has actually guessed the identity of the other party. Li Huai mentioned this person. He was a guy who wanted to be a student of Qin Pingan in his early years. He used to travel together to study. Cui Dongshan said shyly, "Today's visit, I really have something to ask for, but it's a little hard to tell." Nin Daoist said, "Since it's hard to tell, don't say it. Be polite to me, then I will not be polite to you." Cui Dongshan said sternly, "Senior does not know, when the junior walked down the mountain in his early years, he also had a famous nickname. It is similar to the senior's tender Taoist, so he is called the Dirty Taoist. Dog man." Nin Daoist's face is gloomy. He doesn't learn well at a young age, and he comes to the door and swears. A penny stumped a hero, and felt aggrieved. The fairy money in Cui Dongshan's pocket had some savings earlier. But that old seems to have long ago decided that he will open a sect, and leave the few things that are close to Cui Dongshan. Neither will he be stretched thin, nor is he very comfortable. In short, Cui Dongshan wants to spend money with his eyes closed, so don't think about it. Cui Dongshan put his toes a little, stepped on the courtyard wall, jumped again, fell to the roof, sat down beside the Nin Daoist, and whispered, "Nin Daoist, to be honest, we have just established a sect." Nin Daoist grabbed the words and said, "I have no money." Or Li Huai is right, being a person can't be led away by face. Besides, it's not that Daoist Nin deliberately pretended to be poor, but it was the truth. In the 100,000-strong mountain, year after year, the immortal money that had been hard-earned earlier was eaten up by the hungry and wild touting. How can you be that old blind man with a bad temper no matter how high your realm is? Still in charge of meals. In the end, there were only 3 kinds of immortal coins left in Savage Touting's pocket, 1 for each. It is really reluctant to eat it, just as a thought for myself. But if you want to talk about treasures, elixir, etc., there are still a few of them. After all, he is an Ascension realm, and he is an old cultivator who is known for his fierceness in the wild world. Friend, say hello. The boy in white seemed to have suffered a heavy hammer in his heart, and he was dumbfounded for a while, and said in a dull voice, "It's like this, such a virtuous and long-standing senior on the mountain, as Nin Dao Chang." Nin Daoist nodded and said, "Poor. You are talking too hard, and Daoist Nin is worried about hurting the peace. I heard that the scholars of Wensheng's lineage are better than each other. If Cui Dongshan sues Li Huai one day, it will not be beautiful after all." So Nin the Taoist slowed down and explained, "If I really want to be rich, why should I come to Immortal Longbeard to eat, drink and live?" Cui Dongshan rubbed his hands together and said, "A piece of money is all that's needed, so how much is the senior willing to contribute?" Nin Daoist immediately became alert. "Do your best." "How do you say it?" "Since it's all from his own family, I would like to trouble Sect Master Cui to say a few open words. With regard to the fact that the imperial courts of various countries paid for the mountains, I can support myself, whether I borrow money from everywhere, or give credit to others. It is always a matter of tearing down the east wall to make up for the west wall, and I can barely make it. Those hilltops that are regarded as tasteless by the monarchs of various countries, they do not have long legs. The matter of moving the mountains consumes too much the spiritual energy of Qi practitioners. Mustard seeds have supreme supernatural powers, so every time I carry a heavy load and return to the sect, it is more than miserable, and several times, I am called Tian not working, and I just want to kill him. Nin Daoist has no money, the younger generation has no realm, and it is no wonder that the brothers and sisters are in trouble." Nin Daoist smiled and said, I came to Tongya Continent this time, but I was invited by your husband to help the Dado excavation move to the mountains. Your request is a private matter, right? After thinking for a moment, the Taoist nun continued, if Sect Master Chui is willing to speak to his husband and go to Jisa Peak in Luopa Mountain to ask for an official document, no matter how difficult this is, I will help. Following Li Huai, Daoist Nen still learned a lot of knowledge about how to behave in the world. At first, he was worried that Cui Dongshan would make his own decisions, and he would not be thankful for his own efforts. Where it was wrong, there was no one to help. Chen Pingan has a statement, it is a piece of evidence in black and white. If there is any problem in the future, you can push it to Chen Pingan. This young hidden official is a little obsessed with money, and he is more moral in life. Furthermore, even though he was one of the ancestors, a well-deserved ancestor, apart from Zhu Yan, no one dared to compare himself with him. Moving to the mountains was naturally easy, but he couldn't do anything in vain. Yes, you have to owe me a favor. This is called foolproof, and kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Cui Dongshan was relieved. Yes, why there is no letter, there has been a back and forth long ago. If there is no nod and inspiration from the master, how can the junior dare to come to the senior to harass? Isn't it too rude, too rude? Under the sun there is no reason to be a junior like that. Cui Dongshan took out a letter from his sleeve and offered it with both hands. Daoist Nen put the letter in his sleeve, and did not open it, nodded, then I will accompany Sect Master Cui for a trip, and Quan will be a hot hand. Since there is a handwritten letter from the young hidden official, it's not a favor if you don't help. If you really have to worry about it, let alone moving mountains easily, it doesn't matter if you help refine mountains, it's all cultivation anyway. Damn, this young man is a master of a sect or a disciple of Wenxing, so he can't lie to himself about this kind of thing. Therefore, the letters are not torn down in person. After all, the scholars in the world are all good-natured. The vast world that pays attention to red tape everywhere is no better than the hometown of going all over the world with bare hands. Here, relying solely on the high level, no matter how powerful you are, you will still not be able to get along. The road is getting narrower, only with many friends with familiar faces and lots of incense on the mountain, can we have both sides, staggering each other, and having a meal in a row. Cui Dongshan made a gesture of raising his head to raise his glass and said with a smile, Master Nen, there is our own ferry over Yolindu. There is good wine on the boat, why don't we have another meal? The Nen Daoist thought for a while, anyway, he was bored, and he would drink when he was drinking. In fact, Cui Dongshan set up this way, it is a normal immortal mansion, and a loose and random mountain like Luopa Mountain is a special case. Qing Tong glanced at the map, and found that there were a total of 3 houses, 6 divisions and 8 bureaus, namely, the Quan Mansion, the Mountain Mansion, and the Water Mansion, which were relatively detached. Ritual System Department, Degree Support Department, Merit and Demerit Department, Operation Department, Travel Department, Inspection Department. Economics Bureau, Incense Bureau, Hooking Bureau, Secretary Bureau, Brewing Bureau, Construction Bureau, Carving Bureau, Huaiwe Bureau. Chuanfu. Responsible for the financial power of the entire sect, the person in charge can only be Chong Chiu. Master Zhong is quite special. One person owns multiple offices, in addition to the Quan Mansion set on the Mishua Peak of Xianda Mountain, and a private house in Yunjian Mountain. He is responsible for teaching boxing to a group of pure martial arts in the mountain. In addition, Cui Dongshan has just built an academy at the foot of Qimiao Mountain. Said by Sect Master Cui as a kind of master who is capable of working hard, he served as the first academy mountain chief. Mountain House. Jurisdiction over a matter of the size of the various peaks, and at the same time in charge of the mountain protection formation and all landscape restrictions. When encountering some urgent matters that cannot be held in the Mixifeng Patriarch Hall, members of the mountain house can make a temporary decision. It looks a bit similar to a smaller ancestral hall, with only 5 people for the time being: Cui Dongshan, Miyu, Jing Xingfeng, Chao Qingqing, the chief guest Qing Huangting, and the second seat is dedicated to Qing Tong. Water House. Responsible for collecting espionage, cultivating assassins of the dead, in charge of the sects on the bright side, as well as the mountain patrols in the neighboring mountains and rivers, preventing the infiltration of the sect by hostile forces, at the same time placing chess pieces outside, cultivating and supporting some anonymous direct monks and cultivators. Ally Immortal Mansion. The leader is Cui Dongshan, and the deputy is Cui Wei. Ritual Department. There are many responsibilities, responsible for recording genealogy and household registration, ritual and music shrines and sacrificial offerings, masters and priests, marriage and inheritance, Zhushan Dojo, Wuguan Academy, plus chronology compilation, promotion and commentary, usual dealing with people and things, and also in charge of writing landscape and residence newspapers, etc. thing. The right side of Sui served as the chief officer of the ritual system, and Chao Qingqing and Qiu Du jointly served as the assistant officers. This ritual system division is undoubtedly the first among the divisions. If there are some troublesome disputes outside the mountains, you can directly send a letter to the water house with flying swords. This division is enshrined at the end of the table. Jinsho Chao Jun is the chief officer, and it is under the jurisdiction of the Shuifu, but Taiping Shan Huangting, Pushan Yi Yunyun, Zinyala Qingtong, Dequan Jingqing Governor Yao Xianji are all named on Yunyu Division side. Inspection Division. It is only said that on the cross-continental ferry Fengyuan, there are a group of golden-armored warriors and talisman puppets refined by Cui Dongshan. Among them, nearly 100 landscape inspections were named Yugong and Jin respectively by Cui Dongshan. Teachers, mountain pickers, fish hunters, etc. In addition, there are more than 200 agency puppets. The former are scattered all over Tongya continent. In addition to meticulously depicting the landscapes of various places, they can also lead sheep along the way, hunt for treasures and collect leeks. As for the latter, they have already invested in the excavation of Dadu. Economic Bureau. To put it simply, the most important responsibility, the Economics and Management Bureau, is responsible for setting up the quota of each peak. For example, you can suggest how many seats can be placed in a patriarchal hall, and how many direct disciples are suitable for each peak of the opening peak. The number of disciples outside the sect is under the jurisdiction of the Bureau of Classics, and at the same time weighs the mountains and rivers between the peaks and the dojos. For those hills that are suitable for peaking in the future, give the order and candidate comments. It's just that relatively speaking, the official body is not as beautiful as the Department of Rights. Incense Bureau. Arrange evangelists and guardians to communicate with allies on the mountain, and take into account the records of each disciple's archives, background resumes, experience, and comments. When needed, officials from the Department of Rights and the Department of Merit and Demerit can come here to adjust read. Generally speaking, they belong to the Ritual System Department in the interior and the Incense Bureau outside. Hook Sinking Bureau. Look for sword cultivators who are suitable for practice, natural Taoists, and those with martial arts qualifications. In the end, he was responsible for secretly searching for suitable disciples and taking them to the mountain gate to practice and ask. Secretariat. Keep and collect all the books, spirit book secrets, swordsmanship and boxing. Chao Qingqing is in charge. The Yunyu Division and the Water House, the Spring House and the Duji Division, the Ritual System and the Economics Bureau, and the Rights and the Incense Bureau all seem to have overlapping responsibilities to a certain extent. In addition, according to the framework set by this government office, only fairy money and real money are mentioned. Secret treasures, including robes, magic weapons, etc. Taoist book. The three are separated. Brewing Bureau. Allocating food and medicine to the peaks, brewing and cooking medicine, refining panacea, daily drinking of charcoal and firewood, cleaning of the study room, lamps and candles, etc. The Old Dragon Palace teaches the old Chiu Du, who was born in the Old Dragon Palace, Yuanyingjing, the old woman's dojo, and is located on the Pajuo Peak at the source of the Miao Mountain. When practicing, occasionally Dao Qi overflows, which can add a mountain and water luck. Chiu Du controls the Brewing Bureau. Create a bureau. Similar to the Yamen of the Ministry of Industry of the Yamashita court, it is in charge of all the construction affairs of the sect, casting swords and refining objects, opening up dojos and mansions on the mountain, building ferry ports and boats, shanzi gardens, plants, flowers and fruits. Cui Dongshan temporarily presided over the specific affairs of the construction bureau, and the assistant officer was Jian Xiu Tao Ran, the Jindanjian Jianxian who had become famous not long after climbing the mountain, and the dojo was on the cinnabar peak of Xiandu Mountain. In addition, there are the three Lan Yi, Yu Xinglo, and Fu Zhu from the Shuyi building in the old Yezigang. The three monks who once served as the transitional port supervisor were not high-level, and they had 2 views of the sea and 1 cave, but they were serious in their work and had strong skills. Engraved bookstore. Collect and buy all rare books. Chong Chiu, the head of the academy, was in charge, and Qing Tong served as his deputy. Flower Moon Bureau. It's very simple, in charge of all the mirror flowers of the Qingping sword sect. This is also the position that Midejian Xiantoi wants to take the initiative to provoke a heavy burden. On this map, there are many names that are unfamiliar to Chong Chiu and Chao Qingqing, not to mention Qing Tong. Most of them are assistant officials of various departments and bureaus. For example, there is a barnyard official who serves as an assistant to both the Economics Bureau and the Engraving Bureau. Qingping Sword Sect is still a 3-mountain structure with 1 main and 2 auxiliary for the time being. In addition to Zushan Xiandu Mountain, there are Yunzhan Mountain and Qimiao Mountain, and their main peaks are Wucao Peak and Jingxing Peak. The ferry at the foot of the mountain is called Qingshangdu. At the foot of Mishua Peak, Shemua named a shoal as Luobao Beach, and built a thatched hut there. Wu Chaofeng is the dojo of the suzerain Cui Dongshan, and the first mountain owner of Yunzhan Mountain. Jing Xingfeng belongs to Chao Qingqing, who has just completed the alchemy of his junior brother, and is not the owner of Ji Miao Mountain for the time being. Among the younger generation of sword cultivators, whoever is the first to enter the Jade Pure Realm will automatically become the next peak master of Wucao Peak, and will take the opportunity to serve as the second mountain master of Yunzhan Mountain. The suzerains after Qingping Sword Sect, starting from the next suzerain Chao Qingqing, will walk out of Jingxing Peak, similar to Jiui Peak of Jade Guizhong. Today's new rules, over time, will become a time-honored tradition. Since it is a sword sect, Xiandu Mountain, the ancestral mountain, is the place where sword cultivators practice swords. On the other side of Ji Miao Mountain, Qi practitioners other than sword cultivators. Yunzhan Mountain is dominated by warriors. Cloud Steaming Mountain, Pei Qian chose the fishing pavilion next to the green bamboo stream, and settled down. Chen Pingan, the master, chose to build a private house on the slightly higher mound peak. Qing Tong, who was enshrined as the second seat, was able to occupy a hilltop and open it up as his own dojo according to the usual practice on the mountain. With this arrangement, the intention is very simple. Chen Pingan hoped that fellow Daoist Qing Qing could serve as the guardian behind the proud student Chao Qingqing. Qing Tong is naturally aware of this. Before Chao Qingqing entered the 5 realms and served as the second suzerain, he needed more snacks. Finally, on 2 legs, he walked all the way to Yulindu. After the Taoist Nen had both hands covered, he cheered, "Sect Master Cui is really a great family." Cui Dongshan took the old man in yellow onto the boat and said with a smile, "Where is it?" Before that, Jiang Shangjin and Feng Shuetao had just entered that house. So when Nen Daoist entered the room, Cui Dongshan, who slowed down, closed the door gently. In the house, there is Qin Tong, a demon building in Tongyi's Hao town, a Qi trainer in the Ascension realm, and he is a half-dead martial artist. The Ascension cultivator with the Taoist name Green Secret, Yi Xiu Feng Shuetao. The chief of Luopao Mountain worships Jiang Shangjin, the chief of Qingping Sword Sect worships Miyu, and the two great swordsmen. Plus Cui Dongshan, who was in charge of closing the door. In the face of such a battle, the Daoist Nen almost exploded on the spot. Cui Dongshan smiled and said, "Master Nen, shut the door and say something from your own family." The previous letter was actually a fake. The junior made a joke. The senior won't be angry, right? Daoist Nen snorted, and nodded with a straight face, "It's harmless, it's all from his own family." Then Cui Dongshan was so attentive and enthusiastic that he grabbed Daoist Nen's arm and insisted that the senior sit on the chair of the sect master. Daoist Nen couldn't refuse, so he had to take a seat. Cui Dongshan elaborated on the setup of the 3 bureaus and bureaus, what the original intention was, and where the boundaries of responsibilities were, and explained it to everyone. With the presence of Daoist nun, Feng Shuetao, an outsider, was not so uncomfortable. Cui Dongshan spoke meticulously and chatted for almost half an hour before he waved his hand and slammed down a firm sentence. If there was no objection, the meeting would be dismissed. Let Chief Shou follow, and then call Tao Ran alone. Cui Dongshan is going to let this Tao Jianxian stop wasting time on the Tongyin ferry, and immediately set off to the thatched hut by the Lian River. The construction of the ferry has been changed from paper landing. As for Nen Daoist, stay in the house and chat with Na Qing for a few words. At the bow of the boat, Cui Dongshan said with a smile, "Tao Jianxian, I still say that, wait for the good news, and when you become the nascent soul, I will let the rights and system department help you to hold a grand opening ceremony." Tao Ran said angrily, "Does dreaming count?" Cui Dongshan stretched out his palm against his chin, as if he was seriously considering Tao Jiangxian's self-deprecating statement. Tao Ran was very afraid of this suzerain who thought differently from ordinary people, so he immediately changed his mind and said, "I will definitely not slack off when it comes to cultivation, but the outcome, whether it succeeds or not, depends on fate." Cui Dongshan pointed to Chief Shou and said with a smile, "We made an appointment before and asked you to scold Jiang Shangjin. Now just spit and scold." Although Jiang Shangjin was at a loss, he still smiled and reminded, "Tao Jianxian, agree in advance, scolding will be scolded, don't do it." Earlier, Tao Jianxian was with Chen Yingguan, Shemo, and Miyu, how arrogant and arrogant, but now he really met the old sect master Jiang, and his face became embarrassed and embarrassed. Cui Dongshan jokingly said, "Tao Jianxian, what's the matter with you? Do you look down on our chief Shou, because you feel that your realm is not enough, and you don't deserve a few lessons from you?" Tao Ran said, "Sect Master Cui, don't let it go." Cui Dongshan seemed to be teasing, "Then forget it today." Does Tao Jianxian still have the kind of big living people who want to scold? If there is a chance in the future, I will find you one by one. Tao Ran was obviously in a hurry, and said, "It's all a bit of a joke. It's always so yin and yang. How can he be a student of Qin Shanju? I don't think he has any airs, like a scholar." Cui Dongshan and Jiang Shangjin looked at each other and laughed. Tao Jiangxian's remarks seems to be very reasonable, and they should not refute. Tao Ran said goodbye, sacrificed a talisman boat, and left Yulindu. Jiang Shangjin was lying on the railing and said with a smile, "Why do you have to toss like this?" Cui Dongshan put his hands on the back of his head, "It's not that you can't trust anyone, but there are more people, and there will only be more and more people in the future. You have to find something for them to do." Alone, you can't be too idle and idle. Many should not be the problem that becomes the problem is purely idle. Jiang Shangjin asked a very expert question. In the future, Qingping sword sect's various peak monks and warriors will choose their own disciples. You should also take care of them. Cui Dongshan smiled and said, usually it's just an empty pretense. In general, I don't really care, it's just a passing scene. It's just that when sect master Cui really wants to control, he can control it, and it belongs to the well-documented and justifiable control. Cui Dongshan raised his hands and intertwined his fingers. If they are mortise and tenon with each other, they will be secure. Only care about personal feelings and pursue pure freedom. There are only real people on the land who are free to travel, and Yishio Sanxian is also. Cui Dongshan asked for no reason, Chief Zhou, what do you think it means to like someone? Jiang Shangjin smiled, it's probably like falling into a thief's den. You can kill thieves like Num, but you're still no match. Xiande Mountain, Ban Xianfeng Sweeping Flower Terrace. On the right side of Sui was holding an infatuation sword, the sword light was as clear as snow. Her only disciple, the little cook, Qing Chaolu, is now practicing swordsmanship in that cave. At the foot of the mountain, there was an old man who seemed to be wandering here. Sui right side suddenly widened his eyes and murmured in a trembling voice, Sir, sir. Sir. Longquan Sword Sect, Yue Peak. Lu Xianying finally got out. To be precise, it is a long sleep, no longer the usual nap. Seeing Lu Xianying walking out of the house, who was jumping up and down, Xu Yue breathed a sigh of relief. Lu Xianying had a strange expression on his face, and said in his heart, I saw that sword cultivator who was one of the 10 heroes of the ancient world again. Since Lu Xianying had said so, in fact, Xingyu, who was not interested in it, could only pretend to be curious and asked, then what? I think you are a genius, and when I am happy, will I teach you some brilliant swordsmanship? Lu Xianying looked complicated, he hesitated several times before he finally waved his hand, I have an agreement with him, and I will tell you the details later. Xingyu asked a more interesting question, is the fight very strong? How strong? Lu Xianying nodded and said, I once followed him to Bixiao Cave in Luobaotin. I could only watch the game from a distance. I couldn't see it clearly. Anyway, it was easy to win. Qingyu slapped her tongue incessantly. If Lu Xianying said that, it would be very intuitive to see how strong the sword cultivator, one of the 10 heroes, was. Lu Xianying walked to the edge of the cliff and squatted down, touched a piece of licorice at his feet, brushed off the soil, put it in his mouth, and chewed it carefully. When the Zhongmen Mountains relocated here, the scenery in the eyes was different. There is a mountain in the distance, named Baiyue in ancient times. There are many cliff carvings in the mountain, climbing the clouds and holding the sun, heaven and the world, etc. Legend has it that there are as many as 100 places, but Lu Xianying did not specifically count them. Although it is called Baiyue, the mountain is as red as cinnabar, and when the sun shines, it will be as bright as sunset, like a woman applying rouge. There is a lake in the distance, and every time the wind blows on the water, it looks like a broken mirror. This mountain and this water are all within the same county. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, WAP. Sword of Coming Chapter 1060. The white jade is flying in the blue cloud. Heaven is pure and peaceful. Maybe Xiao Mo's sword light was too eye-catching, and the speed of the sword was too fast. It must be a great sword fairy who appeared, and many monks rose up in the wind in their respective dojos in various states, wanting to come here to find out. After all, there are quite a few famous swordsmen in the Qingming world. If you want to talk about swordsmen, they will naturally win the championship. In the Qingming world, there are often monks Yufeng coming to the bright moon, and the old bright moon, which is now hanging in the sky with Hao Kai, is used as a tourist attraction. Baiyujing is not too restrictive about this, but monks cannot be in the moon. After staying for a long time, you can bring the utensils and delicacies on the mountain to decorate, and enjoy the scene of the 14 states. As a side dish, you can have a drink. The old master glanced sideways, disgusting Yaxing who disturbed him and Xiaomo drinking, so he put his fingers together and flicked his fingers here and there, bang bang bang. It made a sound similar to that of a fan falling into a fly, and knocked the Qingming Taoist priests who started the immortals back to the ground. It was so easy, it was like being hit by a sturdy sap in the head. After finally stopping the figure, the eyes flashed with gold stars, and they stabilized their hearts. They didn't dare to curse, they could only slander. One of them, Yufeng, originated from the Jade Purity realm in Juzhou. The realm is not high, but there is a Yufeng treasure, which is extremely fast, and his body is like a golden snake soaring to the bright moon. If this is the flick of the finger magic that collides with the old master, it is estimated that the injury will not be light, at least the treasure will not be able to be preserved. Xiao Mo glanced at the female crown, then bent his fingers, and a line of sword light popped out. The sword energy did not go straight, but drifted like a gossamer, spreading out thousands of miles in an instant. In the end, the sword chi wrapped around the flying shuttle treasure boat that the monk was driving, and with a gentle tug, dragged her back to a mountain top on the earth, together with the person and the treasure. The frightened young female crown hurriedly put away the talisman boat that belonged to the treasure of Jinshan, and she gave a stern bow to the bright moon as a thank you. Seeing Xiaomo's shot, Lao Guanzhu picked up the wine bowl and took a sip of the self-brewed water named Xinqiu. In ancient times, Xiaomo has always been more tolerant towards female qi practitioners in the world. The old Guanzhu nodded and said, "It's a pity that you woke up late, Xiaomo," and Zuandugwen took the lead. Xiaomo smiled and said, "According to the idea of the context and knowledge proposed by Daoist Bixiao and Luobaidin, if I wake up early, I may not be able to see the sun, and I can't accompany the sun on such a journey. In the demon building of Beipingzu town, I can't think of the previous path that suits me." Lao Guanzhu smiled and said, "That's it. I haven't seen him for 10,000 years, and Xiaomo's character remains the same, but he has grown a lot. Xiaomo's superb swordsmanship, which is at its peak, is like a paper kite in a spring day, with a line of blue sky." With such a commotion, a Baiyujing heavenly immortal, who was living in a secluded place in Hao Kai, couldn't sit still. Before the old Taoist went out, he habitually pinched his fingers and counted, which was strange. Unlike in the past, it was finally appropriate to go out today. Immediately came here to visit the master of Bixiao Cave. In the bright moonlight, in addition to the temporary alchemy dojo owned by the master of the Bixiao Cave, there is also a neighbor, a white jade Taoist palace that can be seen with the naked eye as thick as a stream of spiritual energy. The master is the Taoist priest of Baiyujing Yushu City. He has previously received a decree from Erjiang to teach Judo. He can practice here, deducting a lot of merit from a book in the Qing Pavilion on the highest building in Baiyujing, in exchange for a shortcut. Breaking the bottleneck of the immortal realm, in the Mingyue Dojo, far away from the world, travel the number of ways to get out of the house, and prove the way to soar. Said to be neighbors, but really want to visit, in fact, it is tantamount to a long journey across several continents on land. Xiaomo still sat motionless with fellow Daoist Bai Xiao, while Wang Yuanlu was of low rank and had already stood up under the eaves to entertain guests. As for the young Taoist boy sitting on the bench in the house, who was concocting alchemy, he didn't like to be greeted and sent to him. Lao Guanzhu is tall and has a fluttering beard. He is indeed immortal. Even if the old Taoist is sitting and drinking at the moment, his height is almost the same as the standing disciple Wang Yuanlu. The visitor was the third in command of Yushu City, the old Taoist named Su Zujing, holding a whisk in his hand. The old Taoist priest is the direct disciple of the previous city owner of Yushu City. His Taoist age is long, but unfortunately his aptitude is not very outstanding. Of course, the so-called mediocrity is compared with the Taoist officials of the same generation in Baiyujing. Zhang Fenghai, who had read all the books in Yushu City at the age of 30, was the only junior disciple of the old Taoist priest. When the old Taoist was about to speak, the old Guanju said indifferently, "Su Zujing, speak the elegant words of Haoran. My Taoist friend from Haoran can't understand what Qingming is saying." Of course, the old Taoist couldn't help but bowed his head. Su Zujing, Baiyujing Yushu City, pays respects to the master of Bixiao Cave. The old watchman is still sitting. Xiao Mo stood up and returned the salute, smiling. The Taoist name is Shizhu, the name is unfamiliar, Jianxiu. Haoran Luopa Mountain is enshrined by name. Su Tianjun, it is a pleasure to meet. Lao Guanju stretched out a palm. Su Zujing sat down at the table, and Xiao Mo deliberately picked up a pot of long-live wine to entertain the guests, because he heard the young master say that Yushu City and Xinxiao City are quite good on the 12th floor of the 5 cities of Baiyujing. As for the suspicion of being generous to others, when do you and fellow Daoist Bai Xiao need to care about this? If there is not enough wine, I will complain that Daoist Bixiao is lazy in making wine. Wang Yuanlu just took a white bowl from the stove. As soon as the white bowl came to the table, the wine followed. Wang Yuanlu's heart was warm in an instant. Senior Xiao Mo must hit it off. These days, the thin Taoist monks are practicing Taoism here. There is only one reason: master and his old man are really not good at being a man. As for the fighting mosquitoes and flies, just now, no one really came to the door to disturb them. They were just on their way to Hao Kai, and they were beaten back to the ground by the master. Is it in your way? Master, you have great powers, everyone is in awe, you dare not say a word, and your disciples will still be in the world in the future. Su Zujing said thank you, took a sip of wine, and entered the entrance of the immortal brew. In an instant, the spiritual energy rolled from the throat into the liver and intestines, like a waterfall, and the atmosphere of the cave all the way was fresh. The old Taoist couldn't help but exclaim, "Good wine." Lao Guanju didn't appreciate it, and he just said, after drinking a jar of wine, "If you have something to say, just leave quickly, and I want to reminisce with Xiao Mo." Su Zujing smiled and said, "I just came here to pay a respect to the mountain top with the seniors. It would be even better if we could chat with the seniors a few more ancient stories. Hearing is always better than seeing it in person, and when future generations look at the old yellow calendar, it is always better than what those who have experienced in the book say." The old Guanju snorted, but it was rare that he did not directly order the expulsion. Su Zujing had to sit and drink silently. Fortunately, Xiaomo saw that the immortal official of the Yushu City Tianjun was not good at words, so he took the initiative to chat a few words, such as who the previous Yufeng Taoist was, what identity, and what mountain they came from. In this way, the atmosphere of the wine table is not so dull. Su Zujing naturally knew everything and said everything. The affairs of the Qingming world are Baiyujing's own affairs. In the past, there were 3 rounds of bright moons in the wild, and this round of bright moons, called Golden Mirror, also known as Hao Kai, was in the middle of the past. It was not only the nominal dojo of the Little Credit, but it was also Xiao Mo's sleeping million. It's hard to say who is the real owner of Mingyue. If Qin Pingan and his sword cultivators have not worked together to move Haocai to Qingming, and assuming that the moon has never gone to Aquarius, then wait until Baizhe returns to the wild. Wakes up Xiao Mo, and has never stripped away his personality to become today's Mr. Xiao Mo, it is estimated that the credit month will obediently change the dojo. Although the jade hook has fallen to the world anyway, there is still a month left in the sky. There is a dojo with only the foundation left, called the Toad Palace. The hundreds of stretches of buildings on the foundation were all razed to the ground in the ancient battle of ascending to the sky. When Xiao Amo woke up at that time, he once took away the ruins of a moon palace, similar to a palace in the capital. Chen Pingan will give Lu Xianyang in the name of Xiao Amo as a wedding gift. So to say that the cultivator who is most familiar with Mingyue Haocai in the world is actually Xiao Amo who revisited this place today. According to the original conjecture of the old master, I believe that Zhou Mi must have left behind in the wild. For example, he will at least help Xiaomo and Bai Jing, one of the two ancient sword cultivators. Of course, it is more likely to be Bai Jing, who has relatively better cultivating qualifications. Let her take the lead in joining the 14th realm pure sword cultivation, and fill in the vacancy of the swordsman Lu Cha in time. Because it doesn't matter if you win or lose, the old Guanzhu, who is not partial, doesn't need to spend time and effort to make calculations. Zhou Mi ascends to the sky behind, but in fact scatters the Tao ahead. It's just that this dispersal is the same as Zhou Mi's way of eating wild monsters in the past. It is more sneaky and not fair enough. The great ancestor of Tuyue Mountain died and disappeared. Later, Tuyue Mountain was cut open by Chen Pingan, who borrowed the realm from Lu Qin. The newly appointed co-owner of Wilderness, Jian Xiu Firen, was still very young, and half of the Great Wall of Sword Qi was never destroyed by Chen Pingan. Completely refining and moving away, coupled with the existence of the old blind man in the 100,000 Dashan Mountain, this has led to Feishan's co-ownership, which has always been suspected of being unjustifiable. Feishan's situation is similar to that of the ancestor of Tuyue Mountain. But there is no Tuyue Mountain in the wild world, which is a kind of give-way on the road with huge and far-reaching influence. Just like Haoran lost the most holy teachers and Confucian temples, and Qingming lost Daozu and Baiyujing. In this blank time, anyone can compete on the road. This means that the road to the top of the wild monsters is unimpeded. In the next 100,000 years, dragons and snakes are destined to land on the wild land, and the heroes transition. As long as Bai Zhe leaves the majestic Middle-earth divine continent, and returns to the wilderness, the matter of raising his realm, he can't help his own desire to oppress the realm, and he can't help himself. The two world wars are together, and life is ruined. During the back and forth between Wilderness and Haoran, they have long since begun to join forces with the king of tyranny of the world. Inheriting the Li Guo of Zhou Mi, eating books, and building a city that never sleeps, just like a library building in the world has just changed its owner, Li Gu is equivalent to inheriting all the cultural heritage of Zhou Mi, who created the words and the world's elegant words in the wild, plus Li Gu and restores the ancient times at the same time. The true character of a scholar is contrary to the Xianxue of several worlds. I am the king from the north of Liguo. Fei Fei, the new owner of the Hailuo River, was pointed out by Bai Zhe to a new avenue outside of the water law. In addition, the ancient monsters such as Anonymous and Guan Yi have to return to the world, and they must accept their own apprentices. I believe that the candidates for the disciples cannot be chosen by them. There must have been arrangements for each pair of master and apprentice within a certain period of time. Inside, one does everything he can to teach each other, and the apprentice and master can only eat enough when they are fattened. It's up to you. But no matter who survives, Wilderness will have an extra high-ranking monster on the throne with great killing power, or even a cultivator of the 14th realm. I have carefully considered how many 14 realms and ascension realms I have eaten in the wilderness. Within 100 years, I will definitely double the number of wilderness. If you only look at appearances. From Hao Ran Jiaxing to Savage Wenhai scholar Zhou Mi, he is the destroyer and creator of all established rules. On the other hand, looking at the young hidden official with whom he had an avenue dispute, Chen Pingan just followed the rules and was the biggest vested interest within the rules. Well, those who benefit from the protection of the rules often tirelessly maintain the old rules and pursue the stability of a large frame that allows local shaking. The old Guanju stretched out his thumb and rubbed the wine bowl. The white bowl on the table spun gently, and the wine in the bowl rippled. He smiled and said, "The way of heaven collapses, and the 8 directions are open. What can I do for it? When we return to one, time is also fate." Wang Yuanlu stretched his neck and looked at the wine bowl on the table, hesitating to say anything. Xiao Mo nodded lightly, and Taoist Bixiao accepted a good apprentice. Because the young Taoist felt that Master's so-called return to oneness might not be accurate. Xiao Mo smiled and said, "It is said in the book that if a person can endure humiliation and burden, the descendants of the family will be born late. The Great Wall of Sword Qi and the sun belong to each other." Lao Guanzhu smiled and said, "The old master Zhu Lian called before, now the master called by fellow Taoists, the second treasurer of the Great Wall of Sword Qi, Chen Shi of several worlds, Nan Shaochen Beingwen. There are a lot of nicknames and sayings. I never thought that the muddy legs who step on chicken and dog dung every day in a mean alley would also become Chen Gongzi." Xiao Mo said, "Tang Xingjian is in the land of Kun, a gentleman is kind and self-improving, and he has endless wishes. It is not surprising that he has a place in the world." Back then, the first Taoist priest who led the way on the road had built countless pavilions on the road. Although simple, it could shelter from the wind and rain. What's more, the Taoist priest with the wooden hairpin on his head, every time he passed on a path and a technique, he was also an invisible roadside pavilion. The old master smiled and changed the subject. "Xiao Mo, I had even prepared 2 gifts, such as the Sun Palace where the Sea of Fire and the sword refining platform still exist. I thought about which day to give it from the beginning. Daoist Bai Jing, who has become a Taoist companion with you, now, sorry, it has belonged to Wang Yuanlu." The thin Taoist priest with sleeves under the eaves felt his heart tighten when he heard the words, "And the treasures are all in their pockets." Xiao Mo smiled and said, "It's okay, it's all external things." At the beginning, as a gift for accepting disciples, Wang Yuanlu was given a pocket palace the size of a palm, which is the legendary Sun Palace that has long been smashed. The Sun surname Dao Tong, whose Dao name is Jingjing, is too greedy. In the ancient land, there were real people with clouds, dragons submerged in puddles, and fire helped the Sun Palace. Lushwiking is the dojo of Mrs. Dandan, the co-owner of Howran Land and Water Transport. However, the rank of the Sun Palace is much higher than that of Lushwiking. According to legend, this place is not only the main dojo of the god of fire, but also one of the sword-making places for sword wielders. According to the young man, this Sun Palace is the top 5 treasures among his master's family. As long as you live long enough and the Tao is high enough, your family will be terrifyingly thick. This is true for Xiao Mo, and even more so for Lao Guanzhu. Bai Jing's belongings are not comparable to Daoist Bai Xiao, and are definitely much richer than Xiao Mo. Wang Yuanlu breathed a sigh of relief when he heard the words of the senior. The senior is the senior, and he is indeed immortal. How could Master have such a friend? Could it be because of complementary personalities? In fact, this was because Wang Yuanlu was too ignorant of Xiao Mo's past, thinking that this senior was polite and easy to talk to with everyone, so he was really easy to talk to. The big demon Yangji and Zhu Yan must not think that Xiao Mo is a good talker. The reason why Lao Guanzhu can become close friends with Xiao Mo is that Xiao Mo, in the ancient years, liked to ask people about swords, so he was good at temper. Back then, in order to avoid Bai Jing, Xiao Mo had to visit Liu Beitin. He asked how many swords there were, and the master of Bixiao gave a few jars of wine. The master of the Bixiao cave, who is invincible since he left the cave, can forgive others without mercy. And Xiao Mogwang had fought twice with Bai Zhe, who was called Master Bai, by almost all the demon clan. One time, I felt that Bai Zhe, who had been hanging out with the little master all the year round, didn't do anything well, and his realm was not very good, so he had to cut him down. Another time it was done knowingly. But this questioning sword is a new story after making wine with fellow Daoist Bixiao. Just because Xiao Mo didn't understand why Bai Zhe was a fellow demon, why he wanted to help the little master, who was from a human race, to cast a 9 cauldron on the top of Howran Mountain and engraved countless real names of the demon race. At that time, the heaven had become ancient, the world had been divided into the world, and the world had been decided. At that time, Bai Zhe had already proved his skill through a battle to ascend to the sky, especially if he was able to give a name. The magical powers gave the monks of the demon clan a headache. There was a group of ancient demons who felt that such a Taoist was not allowed to live. Therefore, when Bai Zhe traveled the world alone, there was a meticulous siege. As for the result, for example, Guan Yi, who had been sleeping for 10,000 years, went to recuperate, and the others who did not go to recuperate naturally ended up worse. Bai Zhe stripped off and erased their real names, and was forced to die one by one. The demon clan besieged Bai Zhe, just like Haidu Zhenlong besieged Qin Qinglu. The greater the number, the greater the latter's exploits. The old Guanju snorted, "Is this thing given to Bai Jing, not to you, or is it that your relationship is different now, and it has become so invisible?" Xiao Mo smiled bitterly and said, "Daoist Bai Xiao can't get around this topic, right?" The old Guanju tapped the table with his fingers, and the wine in the bowl began to sway, confounding the secret, and then smiled in his heart. Pin Dao is just anxious for Wu Gongzhu. Chen Pingan and Ning Yao. Lu Xianyang and Credit Moon. Or Xiao Mo and Bai Jing. There is also the song of the lucky man Su Jun and the Taoist name Fukan. Every time there is a pair of immortal couples who are such a match made in heaven, then Wushuang's Taoism in the 14 realms, TSK. Sit back and enjoy the success, the tide will rise. Just talking about the young ghost Su Jun who was born in the Great Chao sect, why can he be able to do it in less than 10 years, really think that he is just because of his unique roots, outstanding aptitude, and prosperous blessings in the sky. You must know that Su Jun is not the kind of Qi trainer with a deep sense of government and no last resort. On the way of cultivation, he is full of enthusiasm and indomitable in doing things. Of course, Su Jun's own tenacity of Taoism, mellow conduct, and clear distinction between right and wrong in doing things are indeed eye-catching. But this kind of person can be said to be a priest of Baiyujing, or a direct disciple of the patriarch of a top sect, but Su Jun's practice started very low, his status is low, and he is also very late in enlightenment. Internally, at the beginning of Su Jun's cultivation, it could be said that he was struggling, not to mention what kind of genius or Tao type. Compared with those fellow disciples and brothers who had broken through the realm, his cultivation qualifications were not even low middle or low level, he could only be at the bottom. Therefore, in fact, every step of Su Jun's ascent is Wu Shuangjiang's behind-the-scenes plan and secret protection, and Su Jun has saved danger time and time again. During Wu Shuangjiang's so-called 14 realms of retreat, Wu Shuangjiang, possibly Wu Shuangjiang, who traveled far away from the Yin spirit, has been secretly paving the way for the young people of the Great Chao sect. Of course, what Wu Shuang gave, Su Jun could catch it time and time again, which in itself could prove that Su Jun was unusual. The Great Chaos sect, who was originally a feud back then, married Liang Jingshan, and Su Jun formed a marriage with the female founder of Liang Jingshan. The two sides are very different in age and realm. Who would dare to believe it? What's more, these two top sects, only their respective lower sects, were destroyed by each other. Not to mention those good cultivators in history who were supposed to have a promising future, many died unexpectedly. At that time, there were 4 of the great monks sitting at the main table of the wedding banquet, among the 10 people in the Qingming world at that time. Yu Dou, Lu Chen, Wu Zhou, Sun Huaizhong. In fact, there is also Su Jun's long-term friendship, pure martial artist, known as the Lin Shi, the first person in martial arts, Yashan Lin Jiangxian. It's just that Lin Jiangxian didn't reveal his identity at the time, and just picked a corner to drink. Wu Zhou and Chaoga, the 2 female champions, are long-acquainted friends. As one of the gifts, Wu Zhou not only gave Su Jun, who is the co-owner of the 2 sects, a way of refining things, but also taught Su Jun, who had already been reduced to a ghost, an extremely superior ghost cultivation technique. This Su Jun, who is blessed with a deep relationship and a lot of beauty, has a mantra, "It's already very good." There were also some distinguished guests who sent famous congratulations even though they did not come to the wedding banquet in person, such as Gao Gu of Huayang Palace, Yao Qing, the elegant minister of Qingshan dynasty, and Bai O, the national teacher. In a word, almost all the sects and Taoists who have the face are generous with congratulations and gifts. The congratulations and the seating of every person who has attained the Taoism are not only the face of the newlywed Su Jun and Chaoga, but also a great benefit to Wu Shuangjiang. The same is true when Chen Pingan and Ning Yao, the number 1 person in the colorful world, get married in the future. One of Wu Shuangjiang's clones, the reason why he stayed in Ascension City was naturally something he wanted. Regarding this matter, Daozu must have a clear view. But Bai Yujing outside the Taoist ancestors may not be able to know about this. Just because Wu Shuangjiang's identity as a military cultivator was too eye-catching, and it wasn't even a trick, Wu Shuangjiang made it clear that he wanted to use this old road to join the 14 realms. But don't forget, in the Haoran martial arts temple today, there are still 2 killing gods, the surnamed Wu and Bai, who were only reduced to their accompany status because of their flawed merits. That transfiguration demon, who fled to Haoran quietly at the beginning, went all the way to the prison on the Great Wall of Sword Qi, and finally settled there. In the past 10,000 years, where has there been the most frequent wars? The reason why Lao Guanju has this conclusion is to guess, and it means literally. After all, trying to deduce the path of a 14th level cultivator on the Great Tao is definitely not a pleasant thing. As for whether Daozu would leak the matter to anyone, such as the second disciple Yu Dou, certainly not. Thinking of something, the old Guanju said, the guy with the Taoist title guarding the mausoleum, he didn't bring Wang Yuanlu into his command early, and he said that the beautiful jade was not carved, but in fact he was deliberately selling me a face and owed him a big deal. Small favor. Lao Guanju smiled and said, there is a young sword cultivator in the Qingshan dynasty. He has excellent aptitude, but he suffers from the lack of guidance from a master. Xiao Mo said, while Mr. Baiyi hasn't returned to Zuandugwan, and I've had a drink today, I'll quickly go to the Qingshan dynasty to teach him some swordsmanship, and treat him as a direct disciple. I can teach as much as I can. The old master shook his head and said, you don't have to be so serious. You only need to teach a few swordsmanship skills, and it will be enough for that kid to benefit for the rest of his life. Xiao Mo said, since you have taught, you have to be serious. The old master nodded and said nothing. As a Taoist friend, you don't need to be polite. Lao Guanju stomped his feet lightly, then put his fingers together, and with a casual swipe, a picture of the mountains and rivers appeared on the table. The old master smiled and asked, have you seen any eyebrows? Xiao Mo just glanced at it, nodded and said, the astronomical vertical elephant, the immortal layout. Obviously, there is an expert who is old enough to give advice. Although Xiao Ma didn't know the map on the table, it showed the distribution of Dechaozong, Liangjing Mountain, and all the vassal hilltops, but Xiao Mo's age and vision were there. So as soon as Xiao Mo raised his hand, a star map opposite to it hung on the table, the Big Dipper armillary sphere, which was the Zhuiyuan that had been dimmed for thousands of years. It has not regained its brilliance because of the meticulous ascending to the sky and entering the old heaven. As long as it's not one, don't say half one, most half one, in fact, even if it's only a millimeter away from that one, even if the careful cultivation level is already equivalent to the 15-level Qi trainer, who can control the crowd of the old heaven, the filling and replacement of the divine position still cannot become the true owner of the purple palace, in the center of this heavenly city. Therefore, Shou-Mi is still unable to become 16 realms. Lao Guanzhu leaked some secrets. The founder of Liangjing Mountain is the little girl in Chaoga. She was born in Chaotian female household registration. But now Qingming World, together with Liangjingshan genealogy cultivator, know this old age. There are only a handful of old things. So Su Jun has to die once. How can he take the form of a heroic spirit and embark on an ethereal way of ascending to the sky? The Zigong flag is straight, and the emperor will come out. The emperor. Chaoga, this little girl, is very ambitious, but she is not too unpopular, which is right. Xiao Mo smiled and said, in terms of scheming, the monks are still stronger now. The old master nodded and said, it takes a lot of energy to go around in circles. What is Taoism? It is rare to meet an old friend who is willing to have a drink and chat casually with him. Feeling inspired, the old master came to a question and answer. Chen Pingan's ancestral home is a kind of Taoism in the Mud Bottle Alley. The same is true for the family mansion of Li Shixing in Fulu Street. Aluopa Mountain is in the former site of Lizidongshan. First of all, we must not move the nest. It is not a simple oil slick on the water, a leaf of duckweed swirls in the swirling water. It is not the cheap registered boat households in Hongzhou town who are not allowed to even land on the shore, but it is like a nail that penetrates deeply. Geography and heart, with a strong spirit, can really affect the customs and human sentiments of a party's water and soil for a long time. But this kind of Taoism is still temporary, superficial, not firm, and it's just traces on the snow. Mr. Sanshan Joho once settled in the house next to Chen Pingan's ancestral house. After a short period of time, Qi Jingchun's old school opened about Jiazi time, and Qingtong Tianjun stayed in the backyard of the Yang family's pharmacy for 10,000 years. Going to the empty building, it will be a fleeting sight, but there are still some broken hearts and threads of affairs, which can't be regarded as Taoist. Lao Guanzhu shook his sleeves, stretched out a finger, and drew a circle in the air. More importantly, it has not formed a small world with closed doors and an orderly circulation. Of course, this is what they do on purpose. If they have to, they don't want to. Just like when I observed Taoism in the East China Sea, I deliberately left a wellhead in Daquan Mirage City and didn't really close the door. Do you know why the most holy masters can't beat the Taoist ancestors? It's because even if the Haoran world only respects Confucianism, there are still hundreds of schools of thought. For the most holy masters, every family's knowledge is a burden. 100 flowers bloom beyond a tree, and the scenery is gorgeous, and the owner has to pay the price of seeing the beautiful scenery of a courtyard every day. Hao Su, the criminal officer of the Great Wall of Sword Qi, once used one of the flying swords of his life, Chanwan, to transform Hao Kai, in order to break the road between the bright moon and the wild world. After that, Jian Xiuhao lived here for a period of time, just to erase the Tao mark, lest the great monks in the Qingming world come here to observe the Tao, and based on this context, it is deduced that a natal flying sword is more. The truth is that he has developed a winning move early, which will make Hao Su lose the first mover advantage early when he asks people about the sword. The mountaintop Qi trainers, except for a very few, are happy to have several killer tactics specially aimed at sword cultivators. The old Guanzhu waved his sleeves and presented pictures of landscapes in wild places. As for this kind of passing, don't look at the great changes at the moment. In fact, if the local people are injured, they will soon heal themselves and gradually disappear. It was the sword cultivators of the Great Wall of Sword Chi, who were guests in the wilderness, stopped and walked along the way, and walked through 10 places. Zhongmen White Flower City, ancient battlefield site Longhong, Diyue Qingshan, Yunwen Dynasty Jade City, Chunjian Mountain, Fairy Hairpin City, Zhochuan Sect, Heluo River, Tuyue Mountain, and Bright Moonlight. Back then, in the secret territory of Luzhou in Beiju, the Daoist grandson, who was a guest of Haoranzu and Dugwen, once taught Dao Yu Qin a similar truth. Before that, Chen Pingan had thought about a problem. Not the kind of shallow taste, but an attempt to trace the origin. At the water god temple on the boundary of Tsangyan Lake, Chen Pingan and Diyu met by chance, and after getting to know each other, they asked the latter a dilemma about the dilemma of the heroes who saw the injustice and drew their swords. It's just that not long ago, Lu Min, who was temporarily unknown, in the Qinghuan country study, when he saw Chen Pingan's remarks, was nothing more than wanting to prove that he had been in the world. The old master turned his head and asked, Wang Yuanlu, as a teacher, let me ask you a question. It has been 10,000 years, and the years have been long enough. Why are there so many smart people in the world during this period, countless talents and heroes, and 15 achievements? There are still only 3 people on Jingdao Road. Is it just that there is one more one? Is it that difficult? Wang Yuanlu, who was squatting back in his original position, seemed to have his hands in his sleeves, but in fact, he carefully studied the greeting gift in his sleeves. It must be a magic weapon that started in the rank. Isn't it impossible for a half-immortal soldier? If it wasn't for the gift-giving senior Xiao Mo who had not left yet, with Wang Yuanlu's usual behavior, it would be like getting a piece of gold. Hearing Master's question, Wang Yuanlu answered honestly, the ancestors of the 3 sects have perfect virtues and no omissions in their practice. They have opened up 3 avenues for the human world. Xiao Mo smiled. The old master said, speak human words. Wang Yuanlu murmured in a low voice, the truth in the book is not human. This thin Taoist priest, who used to be one of the 10 young candidates in the world, was born in the line of rice thieves. Have guts. Of course, the Taoist priests who can hide when they are in trouble, if they really encounter those who cannot escape, as long as Wang Yuanlu chooses to take action, it will definitely kill him. Lao Guanzhu smiled and said, there are guests here, you are the great disciple of the master, and behave well. Is the immortal weapon in your sleeve warm? If you remember correctly, you haven't given it to the master. Present. When Wang Yuanlu heard that the gift was actually an immortal soldier, he immediately became full of energy, and suddenly became eloquent, as if he was sorry for this precious gift if he didn't say a few words. The new title of Xiaomo, the old Guanzhu shouted very smoothly. Xiao Mo shook his head. Lao Guanzhu sighed, Jing Juzhong is a very strange person, and he has always wanted to prove that he is not a Taoist ancestor. Xiao Mo asked, if you want to understand, whether the answer is yes or not, will City Lord Jing come to counter the guest? The old master laughed, and he really had to chat like this. Xiao Mo wondered, can it be done? Lao Guanzhu said with a smile, whether it succeeds or not, you have to try it before you know. Just like when he was watching the Taoist temple, he used the whole lotus flower blessed land and the small lotus cave where the Taoist ancestors sat, and asked for thousands of years to try to turn the world upside down. It is said that in the Qingming world today, in the long run, the greatest threat to Baiyujing, in the eyes of Lao Guanzhu, is actually the Yaya Peak that Zhang Fenghai and Wu Fu worked hard to join together. Parting ways with Baiyujing has both name and reality. This is a real Taoist world. If the big headmaster Ko Ming follows the old path of being a master and respecting the Taoist ancestors, even if he returns to Baiyujing and returns to Baiyujing, it will be difficult for him to become one of the 15 realms. Unless Yu Dou came to take a sword-fighting excursion early, and all the Qi trainers led by Zhang Fenghai and hard work would be cut down and rooted, and then the Renhua peak would be razed to the ground and completely smashed. But this is not in line with Yu Dou's style of doing things. Because Yu Dou likes to talk about things, and only talk about right and wrong. In short, in Yu Dou's view, in the whole world, there is no difference between inside and outside the Baiyujing, and there is no distinction between mountains and mountains. As long as the wrongdoer falls into the hands of Yu Dou, no matter who you are, what your background is, whether you admit your mistake now or not, and whether you correct it in the future, has no meaning. Besides, Kuei and Zhang Fenghai can't support each other for a long time and resist Yu Dou's repeated interceptions, so what if there is another Jing Juzhong who is a spoiler out of thin air? If the general trend of the world cannot help Lu Xun not enter the game, the red dust is involved in karma, and it is difficult to maintain a state of heaven and earth. Lu Chen is one state or even several states. How should Lu Chen deal with himself? What about stepping into the 15th realm that seems to be only one step away? There is no doubt that Jing Juzhong is an extremely pure seeker. However, this did not prevent Jing Juzhong from breaking a jar and smashing it, so that the entire Qingming world was covered with heavy Dao marks after he scattered 2, or even 3, Jing Juzhong of the 14th realm. Enough to change the world of Qingming. Once Jing Juzhong still has a backhand, will he break and stand up again? The number of chess pieces in Yu Dou and Baiyujing, of course, is extremely large, but there are still numbers, and the number is not infinite. Once the game is played, the pieces in the chess tank at Yu Dou's hand will become less and less, and occasionally increase, but the general trend is still to make ends meet, decrease and decrease. But Jing Juzhong, as long as he ensures that he will not be beheaded by anyone, and that he will not end up in a dead end, then even if Jing Juzhong has far less chess pieces than Baiyujing, his chessboard is the entire Qingming. The world, even Haoran, Wucai, and Wilderness, and the number of pieces in the chess jar can continue to increase, more and more, more and more. There is a new martial arts temple in the Qingming world, and I, Jing Juzhong, are like the first deity hanging in the middle of the portrait. When the world is in chaos, the smoke of gunpowder in the 14 states will be the endless incense dedicated to this brand new martial arts temple. The old master looked up and looked into the distance. I'm afraid, Jing Juzhong and Zai Tianzhomi have long been in collusion, and they are the same people. This collusion does not mean face-to-face discussions. If this is the case, I believe that Jing Juzhong must have gone to the Confucian temple Gongdalan long ago. It's a kind of tacit understanding, the two sides don't need to say a word or a word at all, and it doesn't even delay them being rivals for a while. As long as we do our own way, we will go our own way, but one day, we will reach the same goal. Lao Guan pointed his finger on the tabletop, an ant condensed at the fingertip, and the water ripples were like a lotus blossom, and finally it was shaped into a picture scroll with clear veins. The ant was like crawling on a large piece of paper, with heavy ink marks, and the ant was in a cumbersome maze that bumped into walls everywhere and had to make frequent detours. Lao Guanzhu smiled and said, "The puppet, if you don't know that you are the puppet, you are freedom. The Tao has no compensation. Or it can transcend the barriers of words and languages. Or it can drag the world's people's hearts upward by one's own strength. It is a kind of Tao." After a long time, it passed by, drinking water and forgetting the well digger. You don't need to know who the brewer is when drinking, the wine is fine, that's all. Xiao Imo raised the wine bowl and said with a smile, "Worry again and again, there is wine to drink." Lao Guanzhu laughed, "Little Imo, now you can persuade you to drink, it's amazing." Xiao Imo did not dare to be greedy for merit, and explained, "I just learned a few things from your son." Hearing the words, the old master immediately turned his head and spit on the ground. You're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.